Not as much action going on, but potentially soon.
Teams are often pretty content to split this drop at the starting point, Takata, but it's probably going to take possibly another lobby or two. I would expect one of these teams to begin putting on a little bit more pressure, a little bit more firepower. Snazy going to be forced to disengage. Odin just a little bit more proactive with finding that initial surge damage. Both these teams still just trying to figure out their next angle of approach here. And again, the action just continues across the map. And Alexis team, we saw them clean up that initial fight. So now Takata, they just got plenty of time to clean up what remains inside of this POI.
As they see another trio kind of trying to contest the Spire. After you already have those eliminations off the start, as you can see, you know, when the opportunity arises, you can go for more, but what I'd be focusing as a trio here is, you know, getting that mobility. You've got a good amount of loot, you've got a good amount of damage from the start of the match. What's next up on the list is trying to secure that mobility, and one of the ways is to claim those Spires. Not only do you get your hero rank up from taking out those NPCs, but also you have good potential to get a lot of the core mobility items for this season. So I'm not surprised that they don't really want to take too many risks here playing aggressive, but at the same time, you want to make sure you get that loot.
Having the luxury, though, of just being uncontested, that's something that Malibuca, Ping, and Walks are sure to always take advantage of. And being at Demon's Domain, regarded as probably the strongest POI this season, Takata, what are some things that you would kind of expect them to focus on in this match to find that level of success?
I mean, what's good about Demon's Domain is, you know, if you get that medallion, you're going to have basically infinite shield, or at least up to 50. So for getting tags, they can always play a bit extra aggressive, take those more risky trades back and forth. But it also means they don't have to play as aggressive that they want. If they don't want to, they can go more for that long range back and forth. But we were talking about them, Dexy, Eclipse, and Twy. We thought it would be funny, you know, Dexy coming from coaching Blake and NA to the Game 1 win. If now they are able to get a Game 1 win on EU, that would be cinema.
That's always the dream. You can replicate that first lobby success and just kick back and watch what everybody else is left to kind of figure out. Eclipse, though, gonna just opt to overtake the high ground for right now. Wants to keep an open angle on his teammates, but has to immediately drop, just ding for all of his shields. And that's gonna be straight to the low ground, but right up above, trying to see if he can hold that floor long enough for Twy, Eclipse, somebody to rotate back over, but no, instead, Dexy and Eclipse, they're going to close in onto Seziak, and that's going to be a nice elimination to open things up with. Enough space as well created, and action actually picked up over at Outpost. Kind of surprised to see a conclusion come a little bit sooner, considering how slow-paced things were looking there initially.
Yeah, had their opponents loot up for them, robbed it all. Good way to start off the day. Issue with having a drop spot on one of the corners is if zone does end up pulling very far, you know, you're not going to have a lot of time to plan out or even like get some necessities if you're not able to get them on early in the match. But luckily enough, it seems that the zone has potential for kind of pulling close to them here, as it is going quite south.
Pretty expected, though, for Analyx's team to kind of stick around there at Flooded Frogs, look to just control some of those teams that are a little bit pushed more towards those northern fringes, just making it difficult for anybody to really wrap with them, because they don't have to leave Flooded Frogs immediately. They know that they've got teams trying to approach them, but Orc and Analyx, they're more down to just try and hold them back. They want to keep those teams on the outskirts.
Contrary picking up.
It's a surge-based trade out there.
Yeah, okay. It's it was a long range knockdown. Not too much aggression gonna come from that one.
At least not at the start. Despite getting that knock, most teams have the discipline to not compromise their positioning. Cantry maybe second guessing whether or not he wants to keep taking these exchanges, but Andy and Atmo are also receiving about as much damage as they're dishing out. But from this kind of distance, it's going to have to be a third-party intervention before things really kick off between those two.
Yeah. And we can see Malibuca Ping Walks making use of the islands now that appear in the second zone instead of fourth. In terms of island spawns, it's most likely to get this island spawn kind of more in the center of the map. So being a Demon's Domain, when they're rotating up through zone, a majority of their matches, they should be able to claim it if it's not contested beforehand. And it's a good way to get a medallion, a bit of extra loot, even some damage on the teams below them.
It's those teams underneath that you have to be a little bit more concerned for, especially with a team like Malibuca's holding the high ground. But a chunk of surge basing is going to continue to carry a lot of our early game portions. Kylie just trying to keep tabs on those teams located a little bit further north towards Supernova Academy. And as these teams start transitioning into more edge zone, center zone positions, and this is something that Kylie is going to have to keep an open eye for, is you don't want to lose all of your shield every single time, burn through a lot of your resources before that mid to end game really starts to pick up in pace.
Trip doing what he can as Hellfire and Strapped already up above, kind of trying to hold teams back from rotating in. You always want to be doing something as a trio, and if you've got two of your members already kind of trade insert or taking shots back and forth, doing what you can, it's always good to have the other teammate trying to get extra heals, trying to get extra loot, or even hard materials, so you don't have to focus on it as much later on.
Can expect every single hill, every single mountain peak to contain one of these surge bases overhead, though. Robob faded, Ziandi also just trying to get a good measure to see how much surge damage they can actually accrue. But we're seeing players consistently lose the entirety of their shield. It's just that these bases are so spread out that it's not really possible for a team as far away as the ones that like Ziandi and Robo have been taking shots at to possibly follow up on those shield breaks. And it is going to raise those surge thresholds, though. I would expect, Takata, and that could become really problematic, especially with the way that we've seen some of these zones even pulling over water, pulling over elevation shifts. You have to worry about maintaining a ton of damage on top of all that. It just gets so chaotic.
Detrimental for a lot of the trios that, don't have the positioning to kind of take those shots back and forth. Seti, Yapko, Panzer. You think this trio is going to qualify through consistency or get a win, Taco?
On paper, would like to see this team get a win versus
Right.
consistency. Just because that's what they look like. They have more than enough potential for. But Mixin, Opal, got their own battle hanging over their heads right now, kind of sandwiched between a handful of different teams, and they're going to actually utilize some of the misforms, hugging around some of the natural terrain too, trying to preserve as much of their meds as possible, but they might end up having to just go onto a head-on battle here, Takata, if they want to really find an open space rotation.
Yeah, a lot of trios in front of them. They can take a bit of time, though, so a lot of environment, too, they can use to kind of cover themselves as they rotate. Not in any sort of panic yet. Pump power. Also looking pretty chill. I'm just curious to how much damage this trio actually has. They've got more than enough heals to outlast the storm here and get in late, but my concern is after the fact. How healthy are they going to be kind of for that later half of the mid game?
Taking early storm ticks to be able to focus on a dead side positional wrap, always a good choice. Fincheck, Cantry, though. Things are getting a little bit dicey here for Daj, trying to see if he can just maybe be the first to drop from his team, apply a little bit more that disruption factor underneath. But Robin, Ju, they don't seem like they want to let this one go. One of these teams could possibly be in dire need of some surge here at Takata, because it's been rather awkward positional hold so far from Kylie, Ju, and Robin, just hanging underneath this surge base.
It's true. Pulling every zone can be a blessing, but also a curse sometimes. If you're in a really uncongested side of zone, the players rotating in are going to be quite late to get there. And sometimes you just need that damage. If you have enough elevation, you'll be able to find the angles, but at the same time, if not, you might be put into a bit of panic. Looks like they don't want anything to do with the engagement, though, so I'm going to move on along.
If you feel confident in the amount of surge damage you've already acquired, why take any kind of unnecessary fight? Just drawing unnecessary attention to yourself. It's a good mentality for Strokey, Bevies, and Keto. Definitely wary of the fact that there is a surge base overhead on this mountain span just outside of Brutal Boxcars, but they don't seem like they're in any sort of a rush here at Takata. With 6 eliminations, you have to imagine that they are set for their surge threshold.
Yeah, they got to be maybe even elim leaders so far in this match. No need to risk anything else. Here at this point, you can even kind of look for playing the inside a zone route to get more to the uncongested side. Demon Storm picks, this is one of the trios that are fully uncontested, so they're going to choose to do more of those kind of safe long-range surge strategies, especially if you have trios rotating in, kind of position themselves to where all those trios up north that contested each other have to rotate in from, instead of, you know, pushing themselves further and further to the center of the zone. They want to kind of make use of those trios that have to rotate in and get that damage before they set themselves up perfectly for the next zone.
Scary trio to try and deal with, though. They've made it evident that they are proficient at both high ground takes and low ground holds. X-Ray, Nero, Chris, another team kind of just hanging around fringes of Brutal Boxcars, but they might have to clash with a separate trio. It's looking to kind of infringe upon their current position, and they'll hold it, but you always have to remember anybody could come dashing through at any moment. So it's always just best to keep at least 1 or 2 members kind of on that red alert.
Look at the loadout here from Lennox and his trio. Got a couple dash sprites left over, but a lot of open inventory slots. They've seemed to have had a bit of a difficult start to this match. Might have to rely a little bit on a refresh before they can feel very comfortable.
Lux's team, though, probably just content, kind of monitor these teams that they know are going to have to rotate through them, essentially. And they've got plenty of white heals, so they can actually choose to tank, again, a little bit of Storm if they choose, Takata, just to apply some pressure to those teams rotating in a little bit later, kind of control the flow of the lobby from that area next to Foxy Floodgate.
Yeah, if you actually get, you know, good enough of a zone, you can not get a kind of forcefully make an uncongested side by just blocking the rotate of the players that, you know, are trying to get past your little base you've made and then give yourself more of a free rotate later on. But you have to be quite quick to your positioning to do something like that. As I like that these players are making use of basing up in a city, which allows them to kind of reform the mats that they've already used to create their little base in this part of the game. As Storm Surge warning is now active. 166 above is not bad, but you can never have too much surge, Taka.
Yeah, not bad, but could always be better, especially when you just look at the sheer volume of players kind of surrounding the lower faces of this mountain span. All you need is 1 or 2 clean opportunities, and that's something that Rudolph is trying to create. Granted, it's not going to be an easy team to just roll right through. Trying to be cautious about their approach, sticking side by side. Gonna leave Fetty See if you can get that separate angle approach. Instead, they're going to opt to use the Medinist outright. Xayrox just taking a little bit more damage than what he bargained for. Nixor, Rick Nada, two of them might be able to actually hold Fetty back, but you got to keep in mind there's always going to be opportunity for that third-party intervention if there's no conclusion found. And that's something that neither of these teams wants to deal with.
Not at all. Good zone pull, though, onto Utopia. You know, Demas, Fix, and Dharma are going to be happy, but now with the Storm Surge active and both trios incredibly below, they're forced into making a decision here as now a couple eliminations are going to get picked up, but it's not even enough to make them feel comfortable. Still getting hit by Surge as now they're only 15 below. As here, I would try and elevate myself just to, you know, give yourself a bit more vision on the surrounding trios, but something has to be done if they want to survive here.
Kickstarm and Demas were also still hanging out, and they were low, but we saw that they have white heals. It's these Surge ticks that are the real issue right now for Rick Nada's team. They've got to force some kind of damage. You can already see at least one member from Rick Nada's trio just full sending it up against Blasi, but still no opening, still 81 below, and still waiting to see if they can even close in onto that opportunity to get some additional damage onto Blasi. But this is just going to utilize practically all of their heals, Takada. Even if they find damage to put themselves above the threshold, they're going to need refreshes now if they want any further success.
Yeah, Demas Storm not peeking at all, knowing that is a trio desperately looking for any sort of damage. Yapko gonna try and take the trades. No shots being connected. Still 34 or below. All they need are a couple AR shots to stop losing HP, but they're just 2 ticks away from getting knocked out of the match. And in a couple seconds here, if nothing happens, we'll see them again in game 2.
Simply not many options left now for Rick Nada. As a solo being underneath the Surge threshold, 152 at that. Things are definitely looking rather grim here, Takada. He's still hoping to try and clutch up a placement or two. Consistency over the course of all 5 lobbies is usually going to net you that threshold of qualifying in the leaderboard, but Rick Nada definitely wants to start on the right foot. This is just such an unfortunate situation to be in, but he's still trying to make the most of it. Has 1 medkit left to play and just hope that somehow, some way, this Surge is just going to turn off automatically. Maybe the lobby kind of thins itself out for him.
Yeah, I mean, issue is when your teammates are both down, if you start healing, 0 chances of you getting more damage. As now going to be forced to knock on someone's door, but when it's a full trio and you're 1 tick away, a miracle is what you're going to need. As he goes for the aggressive play, pickaxes into the box, but no success going to come from it. Looking at Ping Walks and Malabuka. Tayson actually getting knocked down early on. This could be detrimental to the trio because not even a lot of placement points have started yet.
Doesn't matter what matters here for Malabuka. Ping and Walks' height now might be purely up for grabs here. And Kylie, Rob, and Ju, they want to see if they can get their own piece of it. Staring across the way, they're going to chop out Blasi's attempt. And now, Kylie kind of just waiting for that next zone pull. They're going to be some of the first to move. Kind of just gearing up with those dash sprites. And now, might find themselves clashing directly with Kickstarm and Demas, but they've already dropped a layer. It's that secondary height now that Kylie's trying to see if they can clear out and continue dropping, continue swapping layers, see if they can catch one of these other teams off guard. And it's Darm who's really got to be careful at Trap, nearly catching him out. Instead, Kylie have to sit, lurk, and wait, but Surge is ticking away here, Takada. This is the real reason why we saw them trying to get more aggressive in that secondary height. They're looking for the congestion because they need the damage.
Incredibly difficult rotate ahead of them as well. Gonna have to cross the water. As Ju's forced to pop a med kit. Just 10 HP after that Surge tick. Now Gonna be behind on zone. Difficult rotate up ahead. Still 126 below. Robin's gone down left as a duo now. Everything is going wrong for this trio as Kylie's managed to get one above the threshold. He's now gonna have to ride the wave, playing back a zone. The shots come through. Big knock as now materials are refreshed, but still such a long journey ahead of them.
And Jude's just gotta hope that these teams don't choose to keep turning back around. Jude now trying to break through. Fruzy has been knocked, but Gold is gonna be the one to actually hold strong. Still trapped way at the back of Storm. It's gonna take them a whole uphill battle to actually catch up to where the rest of the pack is moving in on. Seti, Yapko, Panzer looking very healthy. Darman picks though underneath, just hoping to get this double revive off onto Demas, but it's no good. Demas instead gonna draw in the attention of the rest of the lobby. The full focus now coming in onto Darman. Picks his positions and Darm just can't withstand the pressure. Bix has managed to break away, tuck himself into the corner, but as a solo Takada, he's got to come up huge here.
From having the zone pull very close to this trio's original drop spot to having no more materials after the first moving zone, the trios up above is going to be Snazy and Co. We're going to look to close this one out. I also saw Seti, Yapko, and Panzer were looking quite healthy here as zone is going to pull back to Utopia City.
This is a tough break for some of these teams in the low ground. They've expended so much of their hard material just trying to survive. Some of the pressure being applied to from the teams overhead. Ice, Clement, Snazy just trying to keep a firm grasp on their position. Snazy now gonna look to try and intervene. And from secondary height, Tripburn, Hellfire, Scrap, Misform straight towards front side of zone. That might draw them into a fight with Seti, Yapko, and Panzer. But Hellfire seems more than prepared for it. Just gonna immediately start tunneling out, see if they can catch Fincheck off guard. But no good. Supportive measures have come into play here. But Seti, Yapko, and Panzer, they don't want to tackle a team. Oh, they're gonna chop out Naya and bring him down into their box immediately. Clean elimination there for Seti.
There we go. You got to be careful, though, as you have to stay ahead. You can't let those refreshes slow you down. You need your Tarford to continue pushing forwards, continue getting space, as now they're going to be forced behind. Next zone has appeared. Dash is going to get reset as they're going to try and focus on positioning here. Getting a bit elevated, too. Will we see a potential second height as Panzer's gone down? Left as a duo now. Walks Malibuka Ping looking incredibly strong.
That was such great awareness there from Ice as well. Immediately beaming Seti's team the moment that they tried to make that layer transition into the secondary height positional hold. And now Seti going to be forced to drop practically all the way down on ultimate low. You can see a handful of players kind of trickling by him, but he doesn't have a chance to even try and consider a refresh as a solo. He's got to take the time to heal. But Seti still managing to hold strong here. One more Memnon is going to buy him a little bit more time to tank, a couple more ticks of the storm, but he's got to move forward. That's a big knock, though, onto Burke, and that's going to be the refresh he needs. That little bit of additional siphon help just to keep him moving forward, playing as close to the low ground as possible, but finally, with a little bit more material to his name, he's going to work his way up into that middle height position, Takada, and no one has managed to spot out the fact that he's a solo.
Great job clutching out those extra points. Height has been overthrown, but Seti is looking to make a name in this first match. His trip's already been cracked, but he's got to be careful. Misform puts into play. Cannot take damage for a few seconds here, but he's going to have to build. Just wood is what he has left as Fincheck, Contri, and Pradaj, they've overthrown high ground, and they're looking to close this one out.
And Fincheck, he's going to drop immediately, refreshes the material count, and flies right back to height. Only a matter of time before he drops half that material to Fincheck and Country overhead. But Seti still going strong inside of all the traffic surrounding him, sticking to the low ground, knows that he's got a player on his wall, but doesn't have a chance yet to even look at Hustle. Instead, he's got to just keep moving forward, hoping that there is any kind of last-second commitment that he can jump his way into. But Fincheck losing the high ground battle to Walks, who's now completely overtaken overhead, and he finally finds that shot closing onto Fincheck. This is a big switch up now. Walks and Malibuka, they're looking to bring this one home as a duo.
Both not missing a single shot as it's back-to-back pumps continuing to hold on to height. All they need a couple more eliminations. Seti's gone down, but it's a full trio below. A 2v3 to close out the first game.
Silently, Nero, X-Ray, and Chris, they were just maneuvering through the low ground while Hype continued to topple over itself. Chris now gonna try and challenge Malabuka and Wox 2 versus 3, but Chris lost all of his shield. Wox gonna close in. Nero's been knocked, but Wox doesn't get the siphon in time. Malabuka drops, but he holds it just when he needed it most. Malabuka finding closure here. Takada, I believe that was the final blow. I think he held it just long enough.
I'm not even fully sure, Taco. In those final moments, it was shot after shot. Malabuka fell off a height. I don't even know what just happened. What a way to kick off Group 2. This is looking insane.
All Malabuka and Wox had to do was connect every single one of those shots. And the fact that they were consistently stringing them together was actually ridiculous. But kudos to the team from underneath. I think that Nero and Chris, they had the right idea. They knew that they had to take that battle towards the high ground. But right there at the very end, it really seemed like Fincheck, Pradaj, and Contri were going to have the opportunity to win this from height. It's just, that's how quickly things can 180 in these final zones.
I mean, it was a perfect retake from Malabuka and Wox. They had more than enough materials. They had everything they needed to retake height. They were just waiting for that perfect moment. But in the end, it was Fincheck, Contri, and Pradaj that ended home taking game number 1. Frank11 Mini, you got to break that down for me.
I think I'm still processing, to be honest, guys. I don't blame the commentators for being like, who actually won that photo finish? Because it really did look like Malabuka might just about have pulled it off. However, we have to give kudos to to Fincheck's trio, because they had high ground so confidently for a lot of that endgame, Mini.
Yeah, I mean, when they retook high ground, I thought, yeah, really nice take. Of course, there was a team on it before, and then, of course, they overthrew that. I thought they were just going to ride out to the win, and then, of course, Malabuka's team comes in, throws everything out the window. I think it's Contri that's left us a solo. I think he would have been surprised himself. How did I actually win that? It was a bit mad there in the end, the 11.
Yeah, a bit all over the place, but I think these guys played the game well, right? When you look at these guys, Contri, Fincheck, they are players who I think, when you look at group stages of Franciscans in previous seasons, their players I've backed a lot because they have so much firepower. Obviously, they were playing with Upwell in the past, and they looked really impressive. And then Pradaj is just like the biggest passion merchant in the EU, so I've always been a big fan of him. This guy is going to be screaming his head off after picking up a win there. And like you said, Midi, an almost unexpected win with how the final sort of moments played out, but yeah, their high ground play was good, and that's what it takes in these lobbies. You give yourself a chance by playing that way. They held off all right, I would say, from Malabuka and Wox's aggression. To be fair to them, when Wox is hitting shots the way he was, there's not much you can do about it a lot of the time. But yeah, big win for these guys, and I'm sure they'll be a force in that final.
From the way that a number of these top trios were playing in that first game, we're going to see a lot of competitive endgames. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be looking ahead to game 2, but not before we've had a few natters about game 1. Utopia City is a cruel mistress when it's the location of the end game. That water was very hot in those final moments for our trios, but we did have ourselves a banger of a game one. 11-2K, was that an enjoyable way to start the day?
Absolutely. I mean, you sort of got it all. I think we saw, teams struggling for surge as they do in these lobbies. We saw great high ground play, great attempted high ground retakes. We saw a nail biting finish where you didn't even know who won. So it all worked out there.
Well, Malibuca didn't win. We can definitely confirm that now. It was Cantry's trio who were able to take the first victory royale in that spot in the Major 3 Grand Finals. But it wasn't for want of trying, Levin, because they looked so impressive.
I'll be so real. I was watching them when they were going up, right? And Wox is just, going crazy. And I'm like, please don't win this first game, guys. Please. I said I want the entertainment for a couple of games. At least give me, one or two more. They look so primed to do it. I mean, even with Ping going down, Malibuca and Wox, it's actually so scary, right? Like, I'm sure we're going to get to, the Wox highlights of it here. But, when they're going up, Mini, and they're just fighting these guys, it's like they're not, the commentator said it, they weren't missing. They make it look so, look at this from Wox. I mean, it's just nasty.
Unreal. I mean, that's exactly what you get when you put three incredible fighters in the same team. When they do go up for height like that, it's so difficult for anyone that's up there. I think at the end here, we might get a little look at Malibuca's POV. A little bit of a misplay, I think, with how he did this. Because, of course, Wox went down right here, and I think he dashed down. And, of course, these dashes don't sort of negate fall damage. So I think that's ultimately what happened. Yeah, he accidentally did it, so it wasn't even a mistake that he made a decision. He accidentally dashed in. So really tough situation, really tough circumstances for them. But not a bad game at all. Was it 13 elimination, second place? So not bad.
A huge number of challenges for height as well. If you look to fifth place, Snazy, Ice and Clement, we got our French representatives there hoping to make it to Leon. They made an early play for that high ground position, Mini-Miner. They just weren't able to sustain it.
Yeah, they had a really nice zone pull, actually. This 8 zone pulled nicely for them onto that hill. They already had that position secured. You can see them investing so many materials, but ultimately that was what went wrong for them. We can see Seti. I think if they managed to pick up these refreshes, they would have been able to play out a little bit longer, Levin, but it was just the lack of materials that gave Fredage and Code the green light to go up high.
Yeah, honestly, I, as weird as it sounds, I don't really have much wrong to say about them. I think they got a bit unfortunate there. They couldn't get the refreshes. It's a typical game we see in these group stages where a team invests in high early, but in this case, they actually sort of made the right decisions to potentially have kept it. It happens. I hope we'll see them back up there, though.
Of course, all eyes were on Seti and his new trio going into this one. And we have to say, Seti still got it, clutching into the top 10 in that end game Mini-Miner as his teammates fell by the wayside.
Yeah, some really nice plays here from Seti individually, of course. They got a bit messy at times, I think, at the end here as well. They got a little bit split. It was a little bit tough, but ultimately it was a pretty well-played game. It was a nice zone for them as well, Levin. Now, of course, they're landing a shining span, so I think it just got a little bit messy. And this was the moment where the high ground team tried to take them out, couldn't quite find the refresh, but, I mean, all eyes have to be on Seti here.
I mean, look, we were bigging him up, right? We were saying he's not washed, he's not finished, he's still here, he's still alive and fighting, and he did just that. So look, these guys are going to be a team who, are going to be in that sort of top 5, consistency range all day long, I reckon, right? Because when you have the individuals to still clutch, even when, you have these games that maybe don't quite go your way in some of those moving zones, you're going to be more than fine.
It's really interesting as well to see Seti clutching in that endgame because I think that in recent times, one of the issues that he's had in trios and in duos with Cammy is Cammy's always the one who's normally there, surviving, having to clutch things out. And now we're getting to see actually Seti, that game sense coming to the fore and seeing what he can do for his team. So long may that continue as we head into game number 2 with Taco and Takata.
And I'm excited, though, Takata, to see what takes place at Pump Power now, knowing that Predage's trio has found that Game 1 success. They've already punched their ticket to the Major 3 Grand Finals, but now some of these other teams in the lobby, they didn't like how Game 1 shaped up. Maybe they try to take a look at Pump Power instead.
I would not be surprised at all because there was literally 9 trios contesting each other on that north side of the map. So now that you have one of the north POIs more free, it's time to kind of see who is going to try and claim it. Even at Flooded Frogs, after being contested, a lot of rotates came through, but the battle bus is ready. So let's get into the second match of the day.
And you can expect that for some of these teams, you know, you maybe got the game one jitters fully out of your system. Got to start kind of turboing through these lobbies as if you're just playing any other game. You don't want to think of it as that pressure fully set on, knowing it's like the last opportunity, right, to try and get into the global championship. It starts with qualifying to the Major Grand Finals, and that starts with winning your off spawns and repairs, bringing down Andalix early. But there has been a clean 1-for-1. Is now Turtle trying to see if they can turn this back in their favor. Directly underneath, Xnata and repairs. Got the bulk on the slurp barrels. And they want to keep this fight rolling here at Takata, but it might come to a little bit of a pause here. Turtle and Marco were so split from each other too.
Yeah, not looking good, honestly. Turtle, if he makes it out of that, I'm going to be impressed as we look at Supernova Academy. And Kidoi kind of chilling. I did see on the feed the Turtle went down, so we'll see how that kind of ends up for them, but
this was fast though for Bevies. Just immediately bringing down Gobal. That's kind of what you expect to at Supernova Academy, but those early 2 eliminations, the quicker that you can clear out a contested drop, the easier it's going to make those loop path rotations and whatnot all the more smooth. But Pump Power has been claimed by Plazi's trio. And now to see if they have the same level of success.
Yeah, I mean, the issue is when you drop in a different POI, you kind of got to switch up a little bit. You're not going to be as efficient in terms of your early game strategy and your rotates, but having such a strong POI is not something to complain about, as now the issue with, you know, fights taking longer and Flooded Frogs being in the most contested section of the map, it means a lot more potential for that third party to come through and end your game early. So we'll see how they end up playing. They know the third party's here, so no surprise attack happening anytime soon, but you're gonna have to play a lot safer now and use a bit more materials just to get around.
But for 2 separate teams at some of these drops, Takata, some of them have more menacing plans. Rick Nada lurking, waiting, hoping, gonna wait for the last member. Instead, it's gonna be an opening shot, but it's a turnaround. Rick Nada punished. The moment that they exposed themselves and they didn't find that initial knock onto Fede, that was the end of the line. So they were immediately both eliminated back to back.
Hey, respect the effort though. The 2v3 was kind of difficult, but you know, Fede got the job done. As we look over at Demon's Domain, Peng Malabuka Walks were hitting some incredible shots in the last match, already at 93 points. Just kind of set themselves in stone for the remainder of this group. All they kind of got to do is what they're already used to. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if we see them taking home a win in this game or even the next one coming soon. But Dexy, Eclipse, and Fly, we talked about them earlier. They successfully got these 3 eliminations at the start of game 1, but repeating it might be easier said than done.
The way that they're tackling this battle, though, it's the smart play. Just side by side, challenge these walls, and easily go for the open shot. I mean, 1 versus 2 situations that Dexy, Eclipse, and Twy, they're more than comfortable with taking those. But Twy now needing a little bit of backup here, instead trying to crank up for his life. Needs a moment to reload, but Eclipse going down. That is a big response out of Methez and Seziak. And it's also going to delay the outcome of this fight. And that's where things become problematic, Takata, because another team could very easily enter the conversation now.
Not only that, they're on one of the corners of the map, so luckily enough they can see the zone, but if it continues pulling as south as possible, just going to kind of delay their whole match. And Dexy knows this, as the aggression is going to come through. Twy almost has been cracked, but has done the same amount of damage on the receiving end. As the group up comes in once more, Twy's going to be forced to heal. and even disengaged now.
Both of these teams are practically out of materials, Takata. They've been going at it for so long. And even though they can both tank the early storm tick damage, that's not the problem here. It's just the fact that Dexy and Twy, Matez and Seziak, one of these teams is still going to have to make a play for the reboot, man. And they're both just so low on everything, but Twy is going to be the first one to fall. Dexy trying to see if he can still keep his final lifeline rolling, but Matez, he gets the siphon off of Twy and then takes the open right-hand peak. And that's going to be a long draw battle, but Matez will at least be revived with Seziak there. And for Focus, he'll have to wait for his teammates to actually make the play on the reboot.
Huge pump from Matez. That was a huge connection. Incredibly close. Shout out to Dexy for almost clutching that one out, but after the siphon was acquired and Dexy had no more materials, he ended up going down to the right-hand peak like you mentioned. 1-1 for the trios currently after the second match. Pastrokey, Bevies, and Keto, they're playing extra aggressive even though they already have 3 eliminations. They want even more.
And they might find it. Nero, X-Ray, Chris, this team is incredibly low. And Bevy's just going to continue to maintain this pressure. And Keto and Bevy's both just chasing down X-Ray. He's doing everything in his power to see if he can create a little bit of space, see if he can reunite with the rest of his team, but that opportunity is going to be shut down. And Keto will get the body loop. Bevy's finds the knock onto Nero. And only Chris left standing, and not for much longer. Another big set of eliminations for Bevy's team, and it's definitely setting themselves up nicely for being able to focus on their positioning. They've got to have so much surge by now.
Yeah, can't ask for more than 5 eliminations by second zone. Mixing up also looking quite good. We'll see where this zone ends up pulling, but so far the loot has been acquired, and I'm curious to see how much mobility they have. The issue with kind of that surfboard is it's really easy to get tagged when using it, so you don't really want it as a late game mobility item. It's good now in the early game to kind of loot, make sure you're efficient in your pathing, but later on you either want the dashes or the mist forms, so hopefully they'll continue to kind of find some of that as the game goes on.
Big emphasis on just looting up right now from most of our uncontested teams. SETI, Yapko, Panzer. If anybody was questioning, but then again, before I get ahead of myself here, Takata, it is only game 1. I want to see that SETI for games 2, 3, 4, 5, or even sooner if they, the Victor Royale win and you're in. That's always a nice condition to go in on, but I do love that we're seeing SETI be so proactive even when he's left in that kind of solo fiasco.
100%. He clutched up a good amount of points. They kind of fell apart when they were going up layers to second height, but even then, they already kind of staggered themselves from the previous refresh, so it was a bit of a difficult rotate. Good news is they're still 4th on the leaderboard. I mean, 3rd if you count the trio that already qualified through that win, so like you said, it's only game 1. We don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but looking at Tripper and Strapped and Hellfire, they managed to kind of take shots back and forth on a bit of a surge base, but yeah, it looks like they still have it once again.
It's just very easy for Tripper to cover a lot of ground using those geysers, and no surprises. The surge base is off in the distance, on par with the same elevation practically as Rift Island spawning in, and several teams all having to essentially keep tabs on those elevation holds. You never really want to be caught up in any kind of crossfire. Teams that are looking for those surge damage tags while you're just trying to make your open-ended rotates. Utopia City now also being a little bit gutted, as is tradition. Teams wanting to make sure they have as much hard material for future rotates.
Yes, it's interesting to me, as you saw from the stat, Demus picks Darm won the most games out of any trios in the play-ins, and they even pulled Zone towards Utopia City in the last match. But even then, I was thinking to myself, okay, they've got to have a bunch of materials. I mean, they literally pulled Zone to their POI, but then when we panned over to them, I think the only person that had mats was Demus. Both of his trios literally went down to having 0 materials. So I wonder if it's kind of that blessing curse that they just didn't have enough time to look for Surge. They were forced into some fights. Hopefully it's not a repeat of game 1 and they can get a bit further this time around. But back to Outlaw Oasis. Not too much pressure on the trip. It's wrapped in Hellfire.
Maybe not directly in the lobby just yet, but there is a lot of pressure on this trio to make that appearance in the Major 3 Grand Finals. Such seasoned players, it's almost surprising to think that so much of the competitive conversation is kind of steered away from their direction. And so this is a really big opportunity for not just them, but all of these teams. And Matez, saw him at the start of this match, coming up clutch and finding yet another victim. Faded, and Focus actually going to be the one credited for that elimination, but this is a big commitment to spend that much time sitting inside of the storm, hoping to catch a straggler that was obviously looking for that reboot ban opportunity.
Yeah, I believe they were also on the cutoff of qualifying through consistency, the trio they just took out, so it's going to be a bit of a hiccup for the upcoming matches. Robin, though, Kylie and Ju, no eliminations on the board. Said, we want to get a bit of damage here. The Zone has pulled close to them. It's going to give them a bit of relief as well. They can play this slower if they have to. No trios in sight, but it's always good to double check.
Looks like Robin was pivoting. Maybe play a little bit more towards that overhead angle. Tekka, Jasper, Theodore. A lot of pressure being applied right now from Ju and Kylie. Except for wall holds. And Robin gonna see if they can maybe try and catch Tech out, but with the way that Theodore and Jasper are playing this, they are not in any rush to Kata, but the pressure is consistent right now from Ju and Kylie. They clearly want these eliminations.
Yeah, from the looks of it, Jasper and co are being hunted right now as they just kind of try and survive and take some shots back and forth, but half of their base is in the storm, so they are just kind of taken away slowly as Robin's just waiting for an angle. One big pump is all it really takes to give you that kind of confidence to continue pushing on through. You don't want to take any risks beforehand when the HP and shield is equal between the trios here. So it's all about just finding angles and waiting for one slip up. But you got to have one of your teammates, if you're the aggressor here, just keeping an eye out around you, making sure no other trios are sneaking up or looking for that third party. And you can see in the mini-map, there is one player doing that. So no worry of getting third party. Continue the pressure. Good job just kind of doing damage back and forth. That was even a win in my books from the fight, even if they didn't get a single elimination.
Well, for Kylie, forced to disengage, has to go play for heals. We saw Jasper holding on to that med mist too. So smart move from Jasper's team. They're going to opt to just rotate completely out of the line of sight. That's why Ju's trying to ramp up a little bit higher, trying to see if they can still get an additional tag or two. And Ju, even more intent on just keeping this fight going.
He's not done
He's
yet.
going to chase down Tech, Jasper, and Theodore. He's just holding the zip line hostage. He is not letting this trio out of sight.
Chug Jug buff, not worried to lose a bit of HP for the potential extra damage. Just has to be careful with the shots fired back. Issue for Tech and co is that they're going to use so many materials just from this one small engagement, as now not only are they on the lower side of the elevation, but I think they had, what, like 300 builds, 200 builds, some of them. It's just not looking good at all.
Robin now looking to spearhead, leading the charge on chasing down Theodore and Jasper. Just trying to wait for an opportunity to get any sort of additional tags onto Tech. A little bit fortunate there, too, that Robin wasn't able to connect with those kill switch revolvers, but with the way that they are pinning down Jasper's trio, they've got to make sure that they don't wind up getting hunted themselves, because we saw another team kind of holding out, hiding alongside where Robin's at on the mountain span. And this could get problematic for Ju's team.
Oh,
Even more still for Jasper, though. They had no idea about that third party intervening, and they're just going to get picked off immediately.
yeah, they will be able to pick up Jasper here, I'm pretty sure. But once they make it into zone, they are going to be not healthy at all. I was looking at the mini-map too. Zone is not too far once again, so due to pulling these pretty good zones, they're just able to take that extra time, get a good amount of damage. Ju, Kylie, and Robin are pretty set up here, even with the launch pad, to continue their rotate if they want to use that. You do have to be careful in these sections of the matches, though. When so many trios are kind of in clusters, you don't really want to take those launch pads or use those types of mobilities that kind of open yourself up to take a significant amount of damage.
It's also about just trying to monitor some of the other teams that sort of pop up in the horizon. Clement, Snazy, and Ice. Saw them take a stab at trying to hold high ground in game one. Think things could definitely get pretty interesting when it comes to height if they're one of the teams still left in our late game. And Tayson, Atris Chicho, they're also looking to just get a late game run after having a little bit of an early checkout from the first game.
Yeah, I think this is a trio that can have a big match, though. Like, they had a low-point game. They all got eliminated right before placement points started. But when they get that big match, it's going to be massive, is my guess at least. As we look back into the storm once again, 302 below. Odin, Hero, not looking too hot.
Trap Tripper and Hellfire, though, they had so much damage. They were really just trying to chase this team for additional material refresh, but so much damage has already been done. All of their shields are just being completely expended here, Takata. They're just trying to survive the surge take damage. But when you are 456 below, you can't spend all of your time just trying to pop these small shield potions, these big shield potions. Eventually, you're just going to lose that battle of attrition. That's 100% the case here. Hero, Odin, Mayfix, any of them desperate to try and get a tag or two going. But the problem is they just need so much damage, Takata. And all of these teams rotating in front of them, fully aware of the fact that this team is clearly in shambles. That's why they're trailing behind us, taking shots.
It might be too late. It gets to a point where it wasn't right now where it went wrong. It was beforehand when they were forced into an engagement in zone and used all their heals, used all their materials, and now being below, there's not much more you can do in this situation. You can see that the amount of teams that are already holding this congested side as well. If you're late to rotate in, it's not going to go well. Yapco, we can see how they picked up a quick elim onto Ziandi.
Bit. Malabuka. Wax and Ping, a little bit more central, but they'll be some of the first to start their next rotate. Sitting 304 above. And they know there's going to be a good amount of teams for the next few seconds that are just going to be surging overhead of them. Snazy, Clement, and Ice, though, height is the last thing on their mind right now. It is purely for survival, and Snazy won't be able to withstand the lobby focus. Just too smothered. But all these teams, and Chicho, Tayson, Atris, they're doing what they can to continue to apply pressure, clear out pathways for where they want to move next.
They have the loot to take these risks, to take these fights, but that's what led to their demise in the last match. So will they think twice about it, as now they have to figure out a way to get the zone? A lot of teams already going to be holding them. If they can reuse mats from previous trios that rotated, it might be a good way to conserve a bit of the mobility, but Mist Form is going to be put into play. It looks like a clean rotation is going to come through. Yapko, Panzer, Seti. Consistency is what we want to see from this trio. They looked like they were potentially elevating themselves for a height take, but what we'd assumed to see is just, consistent end games, consistent points, and so far it looks like they're going to be maintaining that.
They fanned out a good amount of space there, too. And directly next to them, great minds always going to think alike. Malabuko walks in, Ping, paste, and potentially kick off, but Tripburn, Hellfire, Scrap, that plentiful amount of surge damage that they once held on to, just kind of jumping back and forth, but they're still maintaining above the damage threshold, and that's the real priority here, Takada. But they're going to need a refresh. Those loadouts not looking the healthiest. If they can find a big way to get a refresh going, that could be their in for a nice end game run here. Ping, Malabuko walks. Also just kind of waiting for the prime opportunity to strike. They're not necessarily pressed, but depending on their white heals, Takada, that'll determine how much of the storm they're willing to tank to try and control front side.
Yeah, I mean, Zone pulled from the opposite side to where they were, so makes it a little harder for them to control that, especially without using a lot of shield to mats on the rotate. Strapped, Hellfire, Trip. You can only get so much damage from trading back and forth. Sometimes you will have to play a bit more aggressive, and it's looking like it might potentially come to that as they're trying to figure out a way to conserve mats and rotate. 16 builds is all that Trip has. Forced to use that last little dash, as now they're going to have to be thinking of how they're going to get a refresh.
Strap shooting at the tree and trying to see if he can get any kind of opening onto somebody else, but that last dash not going to take him where he wanted to be. Does find a big return fire, though, onto Nyx. Exposes himself and is immediately brought down for it. That is a huge lifeline that's now been extended towards Tripburn's team. It's a little bit of material, but it's something to work with when they were practically running fully out. Malabuko walks and Ping also now sitting on this front side low. Kylie, Ju, Robin, forced to move forward. They've been chopped out, but Ping, Malabuka, and Walks, they look like they might just be taking shots onto teams, rotating a little bit after the fact. This is just so awkward right now in some of these low ground layers, Takada, because so many of these teams kind of box and set up in positions that look like they're just waiting for the perfect opening blow, and that's going to be it for Tripburn. Demas, Darman picks. Can't say I'm surprised to see that team controlling the low ground.
Strapped with only 2 builds, forced to play it as a solo. I don't think there was a single trio that clearly took height earlier, but now it's starting to change up as Strapped has to decide, okay, I got my Chug Jug, I got one more use of my Mist form. How can I clutch up as many points as possible as a solo? And it's actually going to be Seti, Panzer, Yapko up in the clouds looking to close this one out.
Malabuka, Ping, Walks, those Mist forms are going to carry them past where Yapko's holding on height currently, but Kylie under so much duress here. Collapsy from the backside of Zone, just trying to see if they can break through, but the pressure from height is relentless. Seti and Yapko refusing to let anybody remain untagged. Srapt gonna take his final misform towards that front side, just hoping that these pre-existing builds provide enough coverage, but it's only a matter of seconds before he goes down, and sure enough, claimed by the lobby at last. Now Ping, Malabuka, Walks, they've got this mid-ground. They opened it up with an elimination, but they want even more. It's front side low that they're after.
This is a perfect zone for Seti Yapko, but they have to be careful because it keeps pulling far. Hopefully they have enough materials or able to get enough refreshes. It's Tayson down below in the dirt though. Demas darn picks as well, looking to get ahead. Might have to battle for low ground here, but an amazing rotate through as shots are trying to get kind of tested up above. Is height looking like they're in shambles? Are they looking healthy? Can we go for a retake? And it doesn't look like it as Seti, Yapko, and Panzer continue to rain down from above.
Tragedy strikes for Malabuka and Walks. They've lost Ping. It's down to these two yet again to see if they can come up monumental in these final moments here. Ankido, Bevies for Strokey, a fully intact trio. Same case scenario for Yapko, Panzer, and Seti, except they're in full control of height. They've been chopped though momentarily, but they're going to make a move towards that front side anyway. That might have been the original intention to begin with, but Bevies, Pastroki, and Keto, they strike immediately. Bevies just cranking up, overtaking the high ground now, and Keto just trying to apply as much pressure now onto these other teams surrounding the front side low, and Yapko, Seti, they're just praying that nobody notices that they have 0 mats practically. Seti has exactly 1 build, and he's going to play the Chug Jug replacement. But he was just here in the last lobby, Takada. Can he do it again?
The double far zone pull was too much for Seti and his trio. They ran out of materials. Height has been overthrown. Pix, Darm, and Demus, though, looking to once again maintain low. Malibuca walks as a duo, seeing how far they can close this one out. They got second place in the last match. Can they do it once again? As Demus, Darm, Pix, a full trio still looking healthy. Multiple Chug Jugs, an incredible amount of materials. All they need to do is claim this low, and it looks like they might be able to.
But Demus, he just took so much damage. It's actually going to force that team to reconsider. Height, though, seemingly cleaning itself up. Atmo and Lens are going to be the new holders of Height, but it's only momentary because Bevies for Strokey, they're on the secondary layer, and they want to see if they can continue tackling this. But Malibuca bringing down Lens. It's all Malibuca and Walks now for the high ground. Bevies underneath, but Bevies not going to expose himself just yet. He's going to retreat even, still playing the misform, just trying to get a better position. Since he knows that he's a solo, he's got to land every single shot. And Malibuca Walks, pressure practically off of them entirely. They still have these misforms left to work with. But Walks, he's not going to be able to make it. Malibuca, he's going to opt for the heal-off play. He's got 2 med kits. And wait and see whether or not Pigstorm and Demus can outlast them.
It's a full trio down below. If they're able to have the heal off, it might be enough. Chicho, though, saying, I want to secure as many elims as possible as Demus is forced into the aggression, goes down to zone. It's all up to Darm down below. Now Chicho going to get that siphon. No medkits, though. No hard heals as Darm with the double chug. 30s left. Is it going to be enough? The 1 versus 1. Chicho's desperately hunting for anti-heals. Med mist to avoid taking damage from Storm, but it looks like in the end, Darm, Demus, Pix are going to close out game 2.
They both had the exact same idea to play the misform to avoid as much storm pick damage as possible. But you're just looking at an HP differential. That's really all it boiled down to there. And for Pigstorm and Demus, Takada, they made so many well-executed decisions throughout that end game. And I think it started, I don't know if it was 8th or 9th zone, but we saw them actually tanking frontside low ground with a Magnus grenade. And that shift in their positioning where they were able to get away from all of the clutter building inside of those mid-ground layers because of those chaotic overtake and jump-ins for height. And Pigstorm Demus, they knew they're just going to drop to us. Whoever is unsuccessful with going for height is going to be dropping to low, and that's where they operate best.
Exactly. Their eyes were set on low ground. That had to have been some of the most high ground retake back and forths we've seen in a minute. But in the end, Pigstorm Demus took it home, and we're going to take you right back to the desk with Frankie, Levin, and Minnie.
Well, these guys are going, they don't need low ground. They're going all the way to the major 3 finals. Demus, Darm, and Pix doing what we knew they would. The inevitable victory royale coming their way, Levin.
What a game. What a game. What a performance. These guys, textbook Fortnite being played, playing where the space is, looking for the advantages constantly, and just, walking the lobby down, right? Taco mentioned it. I think it was first movement where you saw them just go for that tank play, took front side. The rest is history, right? They just had low ground control from then on out. And when they're combining it with just perfect aim along the way, yeah, well-deserved win from them, Minnie.
Yeah, you have to be a really, really structured team to play like these guys play, and this is exactly how we expect this team to play right there in the end game. Chicho did a great job to stay alive for as long as he did as well, but Darm just having that ability to understand that the heal-off's going to happen. Let's get those Chug Jugs together. Let's let the other 2 try and frag out. It works so well, and it's a bit of deja vu, actually, because last major, they qualified through game 2 in the group stage as well, so they seem to like game number 2, apparently. Don't know what it is.
Get a feel for the lobby.
Yeah.
I'm loving seeing these guys back on top again. I have a feeling that they're going to be getting more than one victory royale come the Major 3 finals, although that obviously is next weekend. We still have 4 more games to play out in group number 2. But the keys to Utopia City are now free. Who is going to be claiming them after this break? Welcome back to FNCS. Earlier today, we paid tribute to the iconic legends Seti and Cabby. But Seti is alive and well and on fire in the lobby tonight. He's just had to clutch his second top 10 for his trio. That young gun of Panzer and that experience-wise Yapko haven't quite managed to make it to the end game with him. But no matter, because they're winning some serious consistency points here, Mini Miner.
Yeah, they
made it to
went
the end game.
Yeah, they made it there.
Consistency points, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Won though,
consistency
haven't they?
points is, these guys will be fine with consistency points. So they're playing like they're taking a height, trying to play it as much as they could. They played it really well, Evan, actually. It was just another matter of materials. There was another team that decided to go up there, and it was a bit of a problem for them at that point. But if they can keep making these end games, they'll be just fine at the end.
Yeah, I did want to watch the replay back and see what happened because their high hold looked so strong. It didn't look like anyone would be able to take it from them. But we know in these types of lobbies, people are going to cycle their way up there. Any sniff you give them, right? But regardless, they're in a great position. They've been the second most consistent team on the day thus far. And I think we can expect to see some top-level play from them. And thank you, Frankie, for clarifying that Seti is alive. I was getting worried there.
Not only is he alive, his trio has got 44 points more than French Peterbot's trio, who are in the last consistency position on the board. So they're in a good spot right now, but they've got to keep up that approach to the end game. Well, I say keep up that approach to the end game. SETI certainly does to guarantee that spot in the Major 3 finals. Now, if you look one spot above them, top for consistency, because number 1 and 2 have qualified already to the Major finals through their golden ticket victory royales. Ping, Wox, and Malabuka are playing out of their minds, but we'd expect nothing less from them, Nevin.
Cerebral performance. And honestly, this feels like the most Ping, Wox, and Malabuka performance like ever. Like, this is like, they're just having like very textbook games of themselves. You saw them being aggressive there on the chop. You see them in endgame playing on these high levels, being a nuisance to team on mid-ground layers. But another key staple of this team, just 2 of them alive. Like, how many times this year, Minnie, have we been analyzing these guys going, mate, they are so scary when there's just 2 of them. Imagine if it was all 3 of them the whole end game. And now back-to-back games where that is the case, Ping gone down in those moving zones. So hopefully, you know what it'll be? It'll be the one game where all 3 of them are up in like, 10th, 11th zone. And that'll just be the game they win and it's done.
Yeah, that's all they need, right? It seems to be a problem that they're having at the moment, and it's not necessarily a problem when you have all those fraggers in there. I think it is the sort of result of their play style. They're very aggressive. They're trying to go for those pre-hits. You're always going to be susceptible to receiving damage at that point. I think it's just unlucky that it's Ping every single time at the moment so far. So if they keep playing like that, they'll be absolutely fine. That's the 3rd and the 2nd for them so far. So consistency, if it's not a win.
I was very relieved to see Tayson, Chicho, and HRS having a really fantastic game as well, because we didn't talk about them in the pre-show, and I feel very guilty when we don't mention Tayson being in the lobby. Chicho was absolutely the star, though, in that end-game situation for these guys, Midi.
Yeah, and we couldn't talk about them in game 1 because they went down really early on. 22nd in that game. Chicho stayed alive for a very long time here as well. And that's just a showcase of a great team, a team that can come back from a really bad game, Levin, and prove why they've got so much experience, prove why they're some of the best players in the lobby. And of course, Chicho himself doing such a great job at the end.
Yeah, now Frankie was spot on. This guy stole the show. He was flying in this one, popping off, keeping his team, up there in contention. You have to remember, this is a team we're going to see at the Global Championships, right? Like, so we will be seeing them there. I think just getting to watch them warm into things and improve as a team, improve as a trio is going to be crucial over the next sort of weeks and months.
We take one last look at the top 10 before we head into game number 3. Interesting to see some names I'm less familiar with, the likes of Lens. We saw them making a play for the higher ground, got swiftly put in their place by Bevies, and then Malabuka, Wox, and Ping. But they are with Andy, who is a name that we know and love, Levin.
Yeah, Andy Z. You might be thinking of the wrong end. I feel like you're thinking
Andy
of
Z.
Andy.
Z Andy. No, there's 2 Andys.
There's a different. Andy Z is different from Z Andy. I just want to make sure because I'm assuming it'd be Z Andy, but yeah.
Okay, well, let's head to Okata and Akko to get game number 3 underway.
Thank you very much, Frankie. 2 games down, 3 to go. Look, I'm just waiting for Malabuka or Tayson to get one of these wins. I mean, the 2nd place 13 Elims, Malabuka, like Levin was mentioning, they're always up as a duo. The moment we see 3 of them up, I think is the moment they're going to close out a match.
Well, if they are a couple of teams that manage to find Victory Royale wins here at Takata, that could be a huge benefit for some other teams outside of that consistency threshold right now on the leaderboard. You'd want teams in that top end to essentially qual already, but we'll get to see what happens actually in game 3.
After Demon Storm picks took home that Victory Royale, Utopia City is going to be opened as well. They were uncontested, so will the trio take it? Will they not? Only time will tell, as it is going to be a west to east bus, so I'm curious to see. You will be able to see as you're dropping in kind of who might be potentially contesting you at Utopia if you kind of decide to do that surprise drop spot.
The elephant in the room for some of these teams, though, Takata, is that even if they are landing at a drop spot that's opened up, even if you find success from that drop spot and you get your Victory Royale, do you necessarily want to commit to that drop for the grand finals if you know that another team is also going to want to fixate their priority there? But right now, Supernova Academy definitely going to start getting pretty rowdy here for Strokey, trying to see if he can get some opening shots. And the first knock is going to be in effect here. Kiva not be able to escape Doom following after the fact. And now A lone Gobao lurking at Supernova, just trying to see if he can crouch his way to freedom. He might actually escape here.
Yeah, the fight didn't last long in the previous match, and once again, not lasting very long. Bevies and his trio, on the other hand, have had really good games. Enough to put them in that qualifying range through consistency. Currently top 3, not including the 2 trios that have already qualified from the win. But yeah, for Gubba here, I'm trying to think, like, what would there's really not much you can do. You just got to stay alive and try and see if you can bring your teammates back in the game, but not going to rush anything for sure.
But Enkido and Frostroki, and then they know there's still one member left over. So they're not going to necessarily be looting super recklessly. They're probably still trying to see if they can pinpoint exactly where that solo is at. But Flooded Frogs has been a pretty popular drop, given the amount of success that we've seen from some really established teams out of this POI. But for Repairs and Aitsu, they've had a lot of commotion just trying to start things off. Just so many other teams looking to challenge them. That's really what I'm getting at.
That can be the case too in a lot of these group stages, especially if you haven't like fully made a name for yourself as a trio enough to get a uncontested drop like Demastar and Pix have. But you know, it's how you kind of start getting the ball rolling. If you're able to consistently win off spawn, if you're able to qualify. Jake Buka, Kappa Factory. This fight seems to have been taking a while.
This fight took way too long. So now Rash, Jake Buka, Lunex kind of scrambling here. Third-party visitation, and Miruz just trying to see whether or not he can forcibly overtake the Kappa Factory. But Lunex, Rash, Jake Buka, they've had opportunity to heal. Ace, this is an exchange that you do not have the HP advantage for. Lunex won't be able to connect with that shot, but now Jake Buka still looting out Kappa Factory, by the way. Seemingly having gotten the advantageous positioning. They pushed Miruz and Next, just stuck them inside of one building, essentially. But now Valerie, Leches, Azul, they want to start intervening here. And that's going to leave Jake Buka to now go on the defensive. Valerie still has overhead control. The building's there, but Lunex, Rash, Jake Buka, they've decided we're going to commit with the team that we started this off with. And they're chasing down Miruz now. But Acefrag, Next, they're all just full-on bailing. Acefrag going to turn around for a second here. Those tags for white HP. Miruz not going to be able to get that shot that he needed. Instead, finds himself in the 1 versus 2. But Lunex, the suppressive backup fire here. Jake Buka not healthy enough. And Lunex, a clean trio wipe. And the assist indirectly from Leches in the background. Valerie and Azul just kind of watching now as Miruz's team, they will escape, but they still found 3 elims, Takata. That's a perfect opener.
Yeah, I would not complain about that third party one bit. It's kind of the trend time and time again what we see when these fights take too long in the early game. It's just a matter of time until another trio joins the party uninvited and ends up crashing it. As Walks, Malabuka, and Ping, not much worries at all, leading the pack by more than 50 points in terms of consistency, so they know it's only a matter of time. They're able to close one of these out.
Looks like they're setting up for Rift Island play, too. And they're not the only team that might have that in the back of their minds, Sloxay.
Oh.
His trios coming under a little bit of heavy fire there, but yeah, I don't think Ping was anticipating to get chopped out so quickly. Twy, Eclipse, and Dexy might actually beat Malabuka, Walks, and Ping to the punch now because they had to wait a moment for Ping to heal. Sobi going to be the one responsible for taking care of Ping's shields. But Walks now touching down onto Rift Island. Twy, Dexy, Dexy, Eclipse, how well were they able to conceal their position?
Oh, they don't know. They don't know, Taco. This could be huge. As even another trio hit a rift. All it takes is one good 3-2-1 to take out the current titans of this group.
Eclipse and Dexy stacked on the same tree. This is... Oh, this is... It's always menacing. Whenever you see a team that's kind of just crouch walking around the island, more impressed by the fact that Malabuka, Walks, and Ping didn't actually spot Dexy's team on the rotate in, and Walks paying the ultimate price, still barely clinging on for dear life, but he is so incredibly low on HP. He's going to have to depend exclusively on Malabuka to create a little bit of a gap here, create a little bit of space. He will manage to replenish his shields, but they know that the battle is on now. Here at Rift Island, Dexy, Twy, and Eclipse. You started, you poked the bear, and so they're going to need to find another big opener, or they're just going to be drawn out to a standstill, and that seems to be the intention here from Ping, Walks, and Malabuka.
Yeah, the pressure is on now. Not really the bear I want to be poking personally, as now they have to decide, okay, well, we got a bit of damage, but are we really going to continue with this engagement? Like you said, most likely not. As we can see what's been happening with Robin, Kylie, and Ju. Looks like Panzer was actually taken down. Not sure if it was a full trio wipe, though. Doesn't look like it.
No, Seti looked like he was really hurt, but able to break away. So Seti and Yapko going to be left to try and play for the reboot there, but that's only if they don't get chased out. After what we've witnessed so far from Ju's trio, can definitely say that they're a team that is more than willing to commit to holding a team at bay. Seems other issues picked up here instead, though, for Seti and Yapko. It's not Ju's team. Instead, it's going to be Plazzy, Lixium, and Izzy. That's going to cut them short of their attempt to try and dip back into the storm. They're going to fight this one out, but Plazzy, not the opening shots that Seti needed. An early departure from Lobby 3 here. Fortunately for this team, though, they've built up a good amount of consistency points to start things off on the day, Takada. But you know that a team like Seti, Yapko, and Panzer, especially for Seti, he wants to prove himself, having split from Cammy, that was the right choice after all, and
Yeah.
just has to wait it out.
I mean, they've got that cushion to fall on with the amount of points they got, but if you keep falling on that pillow, eventually you're going to fall asleep and lose that spot to qualify. But I mean, they had 104 points going into this match. Cutoff was at 60, so they should be good for the next match. However, if that happens again, could be detrimental. Bevies, on the other hand, good reaction time to keep himself up, but still a little scary. You don't want to get knocked down in the storm here.
It's so common for teams to expend a lot of time tanking up the early storm ticks and just to apply pressure to the flow. Any teams that they see kind of rotating through the paths that they want to take makes sense. And it's also just experienced teams like Tayson, Atris, and Chicho. They know what kind of time commitment they need to make to still maintain a good pace in a lobby. And when you have a couple of Memphis grenades, you can play for Deadside for a while, as long as they've been maintaining their surge, which I'm sure that they've been on top of.
100%. They haven't had issues making it to the late game. It's been more getting those big impact matches in the late game. But I said issues, all it really was the first match, and maybe a bit unlucky because they did get second with 10 elims in the previous one. So a repeat of that is all it takes. Clement, Snazy and Ice now looking incredibly good with 4 eliminations on the board.
Since there was so much action kind of popping off over by the Kappa Kappa factory, to see Snazy's team now surge base south of Rolling Blossoms Farm, that's just like that, that halfway interruption point. Maybe maybe some of that commotion drew their attention, but Izzy, Plazi, they found another team to kind of take over. Izzy's going to be the first one to close in. They know this is a very steep HP advantage. All Izzy needs is one shot, and Leches is just doing whatever they can, but Fede is going to be the first one. And Plaza, while they were knocked, it's not really a serious threat here, Takata. Which direction that fight was going to go, just a numbers game. When you have the 3 versus 1 or 2, the trio should win that every time.
In theory, but not every time. As we're looking at a 2v3, hopefully they can prove our theory wrong. These are the situations where you know zone's far, you know you don't have a big enough HP or shield advantage to take the risk. Even if it's a 2v3 and you do end up eliminating both players, but one of your teammates goes down, you've already kind of set yourself behind significantly. So it's a lot of the time not worth it to take that risk unless you're like Peterbot or something. But for now, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's just the fact that Atmo is clearly watching the back tarp. And Andy, Theodore, that's a nice elimination, but it's the fact that these teams, the way that they catch each other. And again, it's that disruption to the natural flow, right? And while I do think that there are some very clear advantages to playing that dead side at times, if you just spend too much time stuck in one engagement, we've seen it over and over again, Takata, just teams that are already based up inside that edge of zone, they're just going to hold you. It's like you finish one level and then you have to go into another boss fight.
A harder level. Yeah. It depends what part of the zone you're on, too. If you're rotating from kind of that congested side, the side of the zone that's going to have a majority of the trios rotating in from, it's going to be even more waiting for you, especially if they don't have enough damage. Once you have enough damage, you can kind of play that safer route, but it's a low percentage of the lobby that has that much safety. Saw on the feed, Dexy picking up one. There's a trio I want to see take home a VR. So far, they haven't been in the best position to do so, but it looks like the reboot might be stopped here. Will they be able to take the player out of the sky as they have to be careful? Good job from his teammates here, applying pressure, allowing their teammate to drop back in.
Ooh. Some much needed damage though. Maestro just gonna see if he can bring down Square, and sure enough, that reboot play might have actually been a huge saving grace for how this trio actually performs throughout the rest of this lobby, Takata. That's a nice couple of refreshes, and it's really the damage off of that reboot. Immediately securing all of that damage it's got to be such a huge relief.
100%. Malabuka's trio up above on the mountain. Kind of making sure he's good. They're aware of Hellfire, Srapt, and Trip. Are going to use a low pad, though. But it's just to rotate. It's not to play aggressive onto Malabuka. Would not be a great idea with this whole trio up above waiting for it. As we look at another Surge base. This one, pretty centered in zone, so not really as much to worry about.
So many of these teams, though, in the Surge bases, whenever you're holding on to these DMRs, comes down a lot of times in those moving zones.
Oh.
And Slaxe kind of being reminded not to hold those peaks for too long. Xerox, though, run it back. He finds that elimination onto Andy. Lenz and Rudolph thought that they had a chance here. Instead, it's going to be the counter collapse. Fede, Xerox, Rudolph, Atmo, just hanging on by a thread.
How many minis? 13, 14 minis? Looking like they got more than enough shield. Most likely to kind of be able to take those back and forth from their Surge base if they need to.
It's got plenty of minis. It's really just about whether or not they can even break into a decent position, because a lot of fights right now, Takata, from teams inside of the Storm. And Gambao had to make that play for the reboot, which is a big part of the reason why we're seeing these teams having these fights so far out from where everybody else is at. But Gambao just trying to run them down. Kylie and Ju retreat to the low ground, but Ju opens up with a massive connection onto Doom. 3 eliminations, and that is perfect since they lost Robin along the way. But still going to be quite the adventure here for them, Takata, even with those refreshes, even with that little bit of, material gain. It's still a long ways to go as a duo.
Yeah, satisfying shots getting connected. Robin, Ju, Kylie, we're having troubles kind of in that later half of the mid game, yet to get a top 10. Hopefully now they've kind of set themselves up to have a decent match, even if they have to play it out as a duo. Malibuca walks ping. Great position in zone, but don't want to force anything too aggressive here. Hellfire actually right behind them. I'm pretty sure they're aware of this, though, as they saw them previously, so hopefully they don't get caught off guard.
Also seeing Ping, though, with 1 elimination and Hellfire. Wonder how far back Entrepreneur Srapped might be, or if both of them are still even with him. Looks like Hellfire definitely encountered some trouble along the way. He barely manages to run across into the edge of zone.
Uh-oh.
And yeah, both teammates missing, at least on an isolated part of the zone for right now, Takata, but he's going to immediately be spotted out by Wox, Malibuca, and Ping. Given that he was trailing them in the first place, you called it. They're fully aware of the direction that he'll at least be coming from.
Yeah, sometimes, you want to think to yourself, when you're playing as a solo, you ideally want to conserve as much materials as possible, but you don't want to let your opponents know you're playing as a solo, so kind of overbuilding can work quite well a lot of the time to maybe scare your opponents a little bit. Clement, Snazy, and Ice, we saw their success early on, looking to close out the gap in that consistency side of the leaderboard, and with the potential for picking up an elimination or two, this could be huge.
Even better still is the fact that they've already got their position inside the zone. They're just holding all of these teams behind them. And Clement also just trying to keep tabs on the fact that they don't want anybody starting to build on the opposite end of them, potentially preventing them from rotating the way that they actually want to. But Snazy, Ice, and Clement, they've managed to at least bring themselves back, because not that things were looking, dire for them, but a little bit of a hiccup clearly in the early game, and now they're looking pretty set to sort of tackle this late.
That they are. We'll see how these rotates are coming through, but gonna make use of multiple dashes. It's kind of hard to think when you want to conserve these, depending on how much mobility you have. As when you use that mist form, you can't really shoot when you get right out of it, but with the dashes you can, so different situations for each rotate. Tayson, Haris, Chicho, incredible game 2, but fell off early in game 1. As long as they're able to stay up as a trio, play together, wouldn't be surprised if we see a retake or a repeat. Pardon me.
Look, we already knew that height has been relatively contested over the past couple of lobbies, Takata, but when zones are pooling over such open space, spanning out next to the Rolling Blossoms farm, these teams that are trying to get the mini surge bases alive, but it's more about Sobi just trying to apply pressure, keep teams away from infringing on their current holding spot. Asa, the bear, just trying to skirt by unnoticed, lost almost all of his shield, and he's just getting trapped. Those teams on the northern side of the zone just so caught inside of the congestion. A lot of foot traffic moving their way. And Robin, Ju, Kylie, they've been duking it out since the start here, Takata, and they're gonna have to keep bringing answers to some of the teams that are just pulling up behind them, teams that are just trying to see if they can take over the layer that they're looking to control.
Trying to think too in terms of height. We saw that SETI's team took it quite early, but they had so many materials it wouldn't have even it would have worked out if the zone didn't just keep pulling far every single pull. So if whatever trio, kind of decides, is it worth it to take it this early on, you can get a couple lucky zones, and it could be enough to conserve the mats that you need. But I can see Malibuca Ping Walks kind of hungry, interested in those trios that are up above currently.
What I know for sure is that Robin went from having shield to having nothing at all. And the moment that they apply enough pressure onto Sylvie, Walks, Malibuca Ping, they want this front side lobe, and they're looking to take it by force. The fact of the matter is, you apply that much pressure, teams aren't going, they're going to have to spend time healing. So they're going to have to pull back naturally. But Malibuca Ping Walks, there is definitely trouble brewing on the other side. Some of these walls, Snazy, Ice, Clement, inside the mid-ground. Not going to be able to fully close in just yet onto Eclipse's position, but they've at least pushed other teams out. And Clement still trying to just claim as much space as possible while keeping their back walls closed off.
A lot of strong trios kicking off this end game. Sloxay and his teammates here are just 47 above, but full low is where you want to be if you want to pick up a lot of this damage. Now trying to just get some sprays, any potential opening, as they have to decide, do they want to elevate themselves? Do they want to continue fighting for this? But up above, an uncontested high ground.
Shadox and Odilon, all you really want to do from this position is just spray down. Don't allow anybody else to even consider looking up. Even if they were to get chopped out, though, so many teams carrying these dash sprites and the misforms, and they're already navigating towards this next front side. Bit of a far pool here. Malibuca Ping and Walks know they don't want to get caught up with the rest of the pack. They're trying to see if they can get some good pot shots to kind of clear out an opening. And Robin falling, Walks getting credited for that one with Ping. And that's definitely the green light here for Malibuca Ping and Walks. They want to commit to this low ground territory. And Clement left in tatters, just barely holding on for dear life.
Yeah, just 16 builds, but I wouldn't call the commit yet from Malibuca. We've seen them try and retake height in those final moving zones, and if they have enough loot for it, wouldn't be surprised if they do it once again. But Shadox and Co are continuing to try and hold on, have not been contested yet, as Clement is going to pop that med miss now, trying to find any refresh possible. Hits the 86 shot, but it's not enough for the elimination. One more needed to connect, but he cannot close it out, as now he's going to misform back into zone and continue forwards. 25 builds, that's what he's got.
All that matters, though, is that Clement found any kind of builds to work with. Still trying to clutch out placement points wherever possible. And will manage to replenish those shields. Ping, chunked, still alive. But it's going to be height that actually gets chomped out. Malibuca seizing the opportunity to bring them down to their level. Malibuca knows they've got to clear out a path before they really get the ball rolling here. And Sobi, Sloxay, Nosif from the low ground. They've been trying to control it since first moving, but a lot of teams beginning to make their way to ultimate low. But Ping, he wants to actually crank up onto the high dash sprite, not going to take him to where he needed to be. And Odilon still barely clinging to the high ground, forced to drop now to provide some suppressive measures against Malibuca, who nearly took out Isha. But Odilon finding one from the high ground. Ping could be next if they're not careful, but it's Malibuca who gets claimed. Walks. He's got the chug jug, but not a lot left in it. Gonna drop into the tree, just try to see if he can find this elimination onto Izzy, but it's turned around. Didn't have a chance to reload.
Izzy closing it out, looking to now hold it above. Clement still up as a solo. It's Sloxy, though. He's going to take height, not able to connect that initial pump, though, as Izzy's going to close it out, as now they get just enough materials to continue tarping on forwards. But the trio that was one height is now below. But Izzy, are you serious? Another one gets picked up, 5 on the board, looking to close this one out. Just 4 opponents left, and Clement is somehow still holding on.
Clement's not the only one either. Sobi trying to do whatever they can to raise their placement points. Shadox, last man standing for his team, is going to now be forced to take this battle up against the team on height. Plazi will drop, just needs to connect one shot, and sure enough, Izzy, Lixio, and Plaze are our victory royale. Takada, and that's got to be a huge, huge feeling of congratulations for this young trio.
Not only is it now their first grand finals that they've qualified to, they were contested at a split drop. They were also going into this match with only 18 points, and from those 18 points, they pulled off a win and qualified themselves into their first major finals. What a way to close it out.
And it's just the trust that Plaze and Izzy had within each other, both tackling separate angles, just leaving Shadox with no room to potentially turn that one in his favor. So again, big ups to Lixium, Izzy, and Plaze, but Frankie, Levin, Minnie, what do you guys have to say?
I was watching that end game and I was going, okay, if you are Shadox's trio and Malabuka wants to take your high ground, just give it up to them. They fought for it. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, once Mali has established that high ground control with Vox, this guy called Izzy just comes up and sort of pumps him off. What was happening there, Minnie?
I mean, it was pretty chaotic, actually, on high. You know, Malabuka always, as he always does in that trio, caused so much chaos up there. And these guys are actually the beneficiaries of it. They just decided to go on up and claim it for themselves. Little duo clutch there at the end. I'm happy for these guys. I'm excited to see what they can do. Of course, Takata mentioned it. First grand finals for all three of them. I sort of know Lixium as a sort of content creator style player as well. Like, although he's a very, very good player himself, he streams a lot on Twitch as well. And he's one of those sort of players that can pop off when the lights are bright. They actually moved to Pump Power as well, getting coached by Predage. So it seems like that definitely would help them in their sort of surge for this win here, Levin. But pretty solidly played, and you know, welcome to the grand finals for those guys.
Yeah, look, for all the viewers watching, I know everyone's doing their predictions of who's the game winners. Who had them on their list? If you had them on their list, let us know in the chat right now. Whatever chat you're watching in. And also, I know you're lying, because I know you didn't have them on your list. I don't think anyone did. This was a surprise for, I think, a lot of us here. And like you said, I think a big part of that being the change up. Again, when you have someone like Predage helping them in the background, I'm sure, you know, it definitely boosted their confidence. And yeah, really great win for them. These guys have barely played a set lobby final. I think they played like one eval final together this season, and that's all their set lobby experience. And now they get to play in the major finals. Huge congrats.
Mate, I'm going to put a call into Kinch during the break and just be like, tell us more about these guys. I need to know more after a performance like that. They have booked their spots in the major 3 finals. So congratulations to Lixium, Plaze and Izzy. We will take a short break. We'll be back to talk about everything else that went down in game number 3. to FNCS. We're halfway through the Group 2 action in Major 3. And unfortunately, for some of the trios tonight, their competitive season in Chapter 6 ends with these games. So, not to panic anyone in the lobby right now,
quite sad.
but you've got to up your game. And that was a really difficult game for a lot of the trios who seem to be feeling safe and secure within our consistency top 5 level. It was a punisher. And yeah, I am going to get serious and a little bit sad right now.
Yeah, well, hopefully we don't have to get sad because we still have two
True.
more games remaining, and so there's a chance for these teams to right some wrongs. But you're certainly spot on. We've seen a big, that end game. A lot of those teams, a lot of those players hadn't really made waves in the lobby so far, right? And it's because again, a lot of our top hitters just seem to go down a bit early there and struggle. And I think we'll see that reflect on the leaderboard where, looking at it, things are looking a lot closer now.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this, this is the sort of point where, you get teams that can really press on and really sort of cement themselves in the major finals. You look at Ping, Wox, and Malabuk. I mean, look at that, 205 points. They're already sort of booked their spot, I guess, in the major finals. And they're a team that I'm particularly excited to see in the major finals because they're performing so well today. I mean, the way that they're making their ways through these mid-ground layers, doing exactly what we expect them to do, and also just doing that consistently as well, finding these end games, despite not all of them being alive. I thought Ping was going to go down again here, Levin. It seems like they just have everything that's going their way, and they're more than happy to be in this position.
Yeah, and this was the moment where Izzy stole the game away, right? Yeah, tough one there. Look, I was wrong because I thought the one game where they would all be alive going into sort of the later mover zones, they would just win. It didn't quite happen, but to be fair, like you said, there was a couple moments there where they got beamed quite low and it got a bit difficult. But yeah, these guys are fine now. Just go through the motions at this point.
Just a quick question before we move on to our next trio. Mini Miner, looking back at that, do you think that actually Malabuka's trio should have maybe backed off from the high ground because they were taking a lot of damage and heavy losses to try and claim it in the first place? And this is a team that can play from anywhere.
Yeah, I don't want to be just like a hindsight Harris, like, well, you shouldn't have done that. You went down. It's like, obviously, but it's like, yes, I would have liked to have seen them, play out their game a little bit more because, this is a team that we know that can play so well from that mid ground, but it's just not them, I guess. They're going to go for high in this level of lobby. They know that they can, perform well from that position. They haven't necessarily made it that clean of a height take yet, and maybe they have a little bit more freedom now in these next games. So, yeah, maybe they shouldn't have tried to go for it, but still, they qualify. They don't care.
Couple more games to go as well to make it into Major 3. So let's talk about the fortunes of the French. And one of the reasons is not only there is this trio inside the top 10 now, Clement's trio, but obviously they want to get through to the Major 3 finals, possibly more than any trio in this lobby, because if they don't get through to the Major 3 finals, they don't stand a chance of qualifying for the Global Championships in Lyon 11-2K.
Yeah, look, we got to start really having these types of conversations now, especially for our French players, especially for very historic French players. Snazy and Clement, both players who understand what it means to play on stage in front of, fans that support you. You want to be doing it when it's in Lyon, when all the fans there are going to be, fans of you and at least people who back you, your countrymen. So hopefully these guys can start to do it. And if Clement can keep clutching like this, he's going to give them a fighting chance, Mini. He really put the team on his shoulders in this game.
Yeah, and that's so important when you have teams that are, falling down. We saw Malabuka doing that so well. When Ping was going down, some of the best teams just do that. They perform well when they're a solo, when they're a duo. We saw Chicho doing it earlier on, and they need to have those performances in these games because there are only 5, so you need to make the most of every single one. And look at them now, second on the consistency leaderboard. They're by no means up in the sort of realms of Malabuka, but what they can do now, consistency, keep it going now for these last 2 games, and hopefully they'll find themselves in the Major 2 finals. Or Major 3
let's
finals.
take a look at page number 2, because after the second game and a fantastic performance from Chicho, the superstar, Tayson, Herictress, and Chicho found themselves inside the top 10. But unfortunately, they've had a couple of, I don't want to say disastrous because that's a very strong word, Levin, but they've had some not great times, and it's costing them.
Yeah, well, look, I don't think we should overreact. 3 points out? Like they're still on that bubble, and with 2 games, I think you're right in that. Again, when you get to crunch time now, you can't afford to have bad games, right? So now we're gonna have to see them close things out here. But I think they're a team that definitely can do that. I'm still not too worried about them just yet. One really good game from them, I think, would put them in a comfortable spot.
Yeah, we saw very similar in game number 1. They had a 22nd in that game, and they bounced back in the very game after. So again, hopefully they'll try and find some of that momentum, try and find some of that sort of ability to pick themselves up and do the exact same thing again, because that's exactly what best teams do.
Well, let's see if they are up there with the best as we head into game number 4 with Taco and Takata.
Thank you guys so much. And yeah, game 4 on the line here, Takata. But for a team like Tayson, Atrus, and Chicho, even though they're right there on the cusp of being outside that consistency threshold for the leaderboard, I don't think they're feeling too pressed about it. I mean, we're talking about a team that's already qualified for the global championship. So Major 3 Grand Finals, surely they've got it.
Surely, right? Still a little scary, though. They're only 2 points off that cutoff. And not only that, I mean, SETI is only 3 points inside of the cutoff currently due to that last match where they ended up going down with no placement points. Game is ready. Let's get into it.
Look, even if people aren't concerned about Malabuko and Walks because they've locked it in for consistency, if they get a win here, Takata, it is a massive benefit to everyone else looking at that consistency portion for the leaderboard, because you're just going to push it one position further out. And given how up and down some of these end game moments have been for a handful of our teams, a lot of the teams that are left over in this lobby right now, their only option is to send it for a win.
Yeah, could be everything. We're already past the halfway point. Like you mentioned, the last 2 matches are to be played out. It's difficult to know kind of what you should do when you're in that mid half of the leaderboard. But if you're at the lower half, we just saw a trio go from having 18 points to qualifying to the major finals. All it takes is 1 win. But if you're a trio like Clement, already in qualifying range, looking to represent France at the global championship, you want to make it happen. And these last 2 matches, a lot of pressure's on your shoulders.
But momentum is something that the analysts touched on, and Levin called it. Clement has been playing out of his mind, and that kind of confidence shift too, it can apply like an effect to the whole team, right? The confidence boost that Snazy and Ice are surely navigating this 4th lobby with. And it's indicated also in just how they're looking to approach that battle of Right Outpost Enclave. But Utopia City, we knew that it was going to be left up for grabs. Marco, Endelix, Turtle, one of the teams trying to stamp their name on it.
They've had quick success in the early game, but also quick demise at Blooded Frogs. So interesting to see them here now in Utopia City, which was once Demon Storm and Pixis, now being contested by 2 separate trios. This match is crucial for setting themselves up, but you don't want to take too long, especially with the amount of trios that are kind of up north, which eventually might be rotating down. You have to be able to close these fights out quickly.
And both of these teams, even if it's not their natural drop, there's always going to be that semblance of familiarity. Granted, there's also that little layer of hesitation that's kind of involved, because both these teams know, hey, we need a win, and if we go out early, like we're about to witness happening to Matez, Andy, Robob, they just had the better exchange for positioning here, and now Faded. So actually had to find himself in a turnaround position here. Focus just refusing to budge from Canyon Crossing.
Oh.
Even with Twy, Dexy, and Eclipse now rolling into third party.
Yeah. If you're Dexy, Twy, and Eclipse, you're thinking that you want that win. Same with Raban, Ziandi, and Faded. They're kind of on that lower half of the leaderboard, a bit away from the cutoff, so you can't really afford to go down in the early game here, but you need to set yourself up for the late game, and for that, it's okay to take a bit of risks if it is looking for those eliminations or just damage from a fight. But Eclipse, Dexy, and Twy, a little bit of repositioning. They saw another trio above, heard the shots, thought, okay, you know, we kind of got what we came for. Let's get out now.
And Ziandi, you can kind of see what sort of kick-started this whole exchange. That Elim onto Seziak, but Pump Power and the likes, Miruz, Negs, and Acefrag still looking to try and control this position. They had to fight for it, though. That's obvious with those 2 early eliminations, but the earlier you can secure those elims, the easier the surge is going to be. But for Square and Fanda, they're just hoping that they can even manage to squirm away. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case, though. Uppel just fully closing in now.
Big shot. Gonna get connected. Quick one tap for the elimination. Now the 3v1. Thought for a second he found him, but once the builds came through, it was confirmation. You got to be careful, though, as shots connect from the opposing teams. Is it going to be enough to make them want to aggress? 2 trios sandwiching Mixon and Co. As Uppel might have made a sneaky play here in the bush. Oh, they see him, though, jumping out of it. This could be detrimental
3, 2, 1.
for Uppel. But instead of the 3-2-1, it's going to be a dash right on in, and it's actually going to pay off as Uppel gets knocked. And they might even continue forwards.
That is just so unfortunate there for Uppel. By the time he realized what was actually going down, it was too little too late to try and turn it. Mixon immediately senses a better idea here is to just fully dip back into the storm, try and create a little bit of space here. But for Twek, Lars, and Mindro, they're trying to see what more they can actually pick up. Huge damper there, though, for Mixon and his team, just because you already had 3 elims. Fortunately for them, though, the members that had most of the surge damage are still up and running.
Looking in the storm now. Burke. I'm curious to what happened here. The reason for them being behind was some quick elims, it seems. As those important shots being connected early on are everything in these fights.
Chicho and Strap staring each other down. Good exchange. This is a bloom battle and a half right now for Chicho and Strap.
Yeah.
However much surge damage they managed to acquire along the way. At least for right now, it looks like Chicho is definitely on the positive end of that metric.
Guys cleaning up the surge. Very exciting back and forth. We'll let them do their thing as we go back on over to a little more close quarters combat, as it seems with Strokey Bevies and Aikido. Don't want to let repairs get out freely. Shot isn't going to connect originally, but the full box might have just come through. And Kiddo looking to close it out, but he gets turned on for Strokey. Luckily enough, is going to save him and continue that push forwards with the surfboard. Not the ideal mobility item to escape. Revive going to come through, and a 3v1.
Ooh, and Bevy's just waiting. Aitsu really nowhere left to run. Bevy's now going to begin to chase this one down. Strokey right next to him. And it's Aitsu heading back up to the high ground, thanks to that misform. But with Bevies, Strokey, and Aikido, Aikido might be reconsidering, though. Given that they looked PC for a second there and then got pieced up by repairs. Aikido having second thoughts, just going to leave that one up to the rest of his team. Aitsu just delaying. Bit of a nuisance here, really. Buying as much time as he has already, forcing Bevies to just continue monitoring him, continue hunting him out. But if Bevies isn't careful, he's a little bit spread away from Strokey. If he doesn't find that immediate elimination, we already saw repairs manage to turn one in his favor. Doubt that Bevies wants to meet a similar fate.
Yeah.
How much is this one elim worth it? And Bevies, now he's fully committed. They're not going to let him take Porta Potty to escape. And Aikido credited for 2 of those eliminations. A big time sink, but it pays off here for Strokey's team.
Yeah, the amount of damage is going to allow them to play safe now. They're already in qualifying range, so a free ticket to the end game, as now they just have to play it out. Ping walks Malabuka continuing to put themselves on that island position. This time probably a bit more cautious, as they almost got snuck up on in the last match, but no trios sneaking around them this time, so gonna continue doing their regular strat.
A little bit of noise for Mixon, Uppel in focus. Caught, but Mithro, Lars, and Twek, they're just so persistent. I have to wonder if they're worried about their surge damage threshold. Seems like they've been chasing after these early eliminations so heavily, almost as if they feel like it'll be the catalyst for converting this into a Victor Royale lobby if they're successful with these early exchanges. But the Lars having to reconsider here. Mixon, Uppel focus, now looking to close in entirely. And it's only Mithro holding back for the moment. Uppel, Mixon in focus. Fully aware of the fact that it's Twek overhead. And one of these teams is going to choose to disembark a little bit sooner here. Mixon, focus, Uppel just made it clear that they have no intentions of budging right now.
Yeah, once you get to these final matches, it's a lot more likely that the trios down below are going to play aggressive in the early game, as they need a big game to put themselves in the major finals. But it's also going to cause the Storm Surge to not hit as hard, as a lot of players will be getting eliminated earlier than usual in this group stage. So shouldn't be as much of a concern.
Teams are just always going to be willing to commit a lot of resources if it means having established control around some of these sprite shrines in the mid game. No surprises though. Heading back over towards that southeast section of the map, that's Snazy, Clement, Ice in a surge base, and this will continue to be a reoccurring theme in the competitive landscape. Just teams fully aware of the fact that these bloom battles are there. It's almost like a practice range.
Yeah, quick training, before the late game starts. Make sure your DMR aim is on par with your opponents or above. I like the way Fastrokey, Bevies, and Akito are looking for Surge, though, playing a lot more aggressive. Already 4 elims on the board. They shouldn't really have to do any more, to be fair, but as they get closer and closer to this trio, hear the footsteps, I'd be realizing, is it really worth it? We're just kind of here to reform our hard mats, get to a non-congested side of zone. We don't need any more eliminations. We're already in qualifying range. Just a decent match is what we want here.
Oh, for Seziak, though, that's a big pickup, finding Z Andy, because that was a team that was having to play off of the reboot. So to open up with a quick elimination right after being brought back into the lobby, it's always a promising opportunity that team is sure to try and take advantage of. But for Tripper and Srapta and Hellfire, we keep catching glimpses of them, but we're not really seeing those in-game conversions, Takata.
Not yet, at least. Hopefully, in these last 2, they can lock in. Tayson doing a good job farming mats, it seems. Which, makes sense. They've been making it to the late game. They've been having a good amount of loot. There was just one quick hiccup, but I guess almost 2. The issue is that one big game is only going to take them so far, currently being 2 points off qualifying range through consistency. I wouldn't be surprised if they take home a win, but at least put themselves in qualifying range after this match would be ideal to alleviate a bit of the pressure. You've mentioned it, though. They are qualified to globals, but you can't use too much practice.
Also, just never want to be the team that's already qualified globals and you're missing out on some of the best practice leading into the event with the Major 3 Grand Finals. But only 2 lobbies remain here, Takata. And Kylie, Ju, Robin, they seem like they want to play for the win. And it's a tough condition because it involves a decent amount of risk in terms of, are you going to look to try and control frontside low? They've chased a lot of early surge from some of these teams, and they've spotted out the trouble. It's kind of picking up here at Brutal Boxcars. Ju gets a great opener, though, onto Ankido. And for the second time this match, Ankido is down, but this time fully eliminated. Robin, Kylie, Ju, they got exactly what they were after. They were hoping for a pickup elimination, a little pickup of a refresh, and the positional control here as Robin looks to pursue Fastroki. Shield crack means go, but Robin from overhead has to close himself off and wait for Ju. Needs a little bit of backup here onto Fastroki. The third-party intervention is the real draw.
Did they get too greedy? They had more than enough damage, more than enough eliminations to play this one out. Going into the match in 8th place, where top 10 is the cutoff, they need a good game here, Bevies and Co. And now after they've lost Ankido, having gone down in 25th place in the last match, now forced to play it as a duo. It's not what you'd like to see.
2 Memphis grenades, though. That is a great benefit for Ju's team to hopefully capitalize off of. Rudolph completely sent packing. Twek, Lars, and Mizro, they need this one, though. They want everything that Rudolph has because they needed to catapult themselves on the search damage threshold. And now they are definitely set, but they still need to get positioning.
That can be done, though, as Walks Malabuka and Ping don't have to worry about positioning. The prime mountain here, especially if they pull it back, is actually Uppel Mixon and Co. who have it, but Malabuka said, that's a nice position. Wouldn't mind it myself. If they're able to get enough tags to cause them to build, maybe use that opportunity for a quick retake.
They know that the Mixon, Uppel, and Focus are distracted because team on height, you're always going to want to prevent teams from rotating around you, kind of controlling flow of the lobby. Mixon getting chopped out now, though. Too much attention sent their way. Walks, though, definitely feeling the pressure. Lost a good portion of his HP there. We'll have enough time to bring him back up, but it's evident. So many of these teams, Takata, they're looking to get fixated in some of these elevated positions like Eclipse, Dexy, and Twy. They've got a lot of space to work with here, too.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see this trio close out a win. This is the most setup I've seen them for one throughout the day. Good amount of elims, good amount of mats, loot, and everything put into play. Now it's all about them. Seti, Yapko, and Panzer, on the other hand, they've done a pretty good job, but just one hiccup in this 5-game format can be everything. And that is what ended up happening, them putting them on that cutoff to qualify, so they cannot afford another one.
Oh, end of the line here for Jasper, Tech, and Theodore. Marco Andelix Turtle. Big refresh opportunity now. What can you do with it? The win condition coming out of Utopia City have a little bit of overhead coverage from some of the buildings, which they're going to need because of the teams directly next to them on that hillside. A lot of ways that they're going to have to burn a good chunk of their material just tarping in, but I love the way that Marco has kind of tunneled out this low ground, and now they're just looking to see if they can maybe catch some of these later rotating teams when they look to push forward.
Seems that Ping Malabuka Walks were happy with their shots, but hold on a second. Just 4 above, pushed up to 13 now as a few more shots are connecting. They know it's too risky to take a big engagement, and if they were to anyways, the trio right beside them is Tayson and Co., who on the other hand have more than enough surge. So I really hope Malabuka, Ping, and Walks are going to be able to get enough damage here. The good news for them is they're leading the pack by so far that they could afford a bit of a rough match, but it seems like they were able to do a good amount of damage.
The hero rank up, though, gonna do Malabuka a solid with replenishing some of his shields, and Walks still finding more inside of the mess that's building. The congested portions of zone. Big heads up play, though, from veterans. It's what you'd expect. They're going to continue to try and put as much pressure to the teams behind them. They don't want to allow anybody to kind of traverse through what they've already staked as their territory. Sneezy, Clement, and Ice, though. Andalex, Turtle, and Marco in their sights. And Ice just closes off the wall. Don't need to take any risk right now.
There's a big game for Clement, Sneezy, and Ice.
Wow. Panzer's down.
Oh, no. Hopefully they can have enough time for the double res. They do pick up Panzer once again, but they're not in zone yet. Now a full trio trailing them. They cannot afford to fight here. They're going to have to use a lot of materials if eyes are on them as they rotate, but it's worth it to not go down early.
You can kind of take a look back at what went south here. And it's Yapko with the latest movement tech. Quick shout out to Higgs, I believe one of the first players I ever saw do it. It's a smart tactic, especially when you are in a bit of a pinch there. But Rick Nada, Beretta, and Knight trailing behind one of our leading lobby teams. And they can kind of be that thorn in the side if Seti, Yapko, and Panzer aren't careful. You can already see a little bit of paranoia building. They know that they're sandwiched currently, and they don't want to become the lobby focus.
The full metal 2x2 double story is going to come through, but the zone has pulled towards them. This is actually huge for Seti and Co. alongside Rick Nada, as I believe this trio needs a victory royale, and although they're 12 below, all odds are in their favor now with every trio having to rotate towards them. They should be able to at least connect a few shots, put them above the surge threshold. The issue I'm seeing, no minis, no heals, not a lot of mats. A refresh is what they're going to need alongside that positioning.
The last thing you want to do is have to burn through your healing resources like Malabuka, utilizing some of this chug jug. But with that dash sprite, Misform going to be able to negate at least one of these surge ticks. But it's Clement from overhead. Malabuka doesn't get the immediate knock, and Clement will barely manage to create some space. Snazy immediately on high alert here. Ping walks Malabuka still after more, but Ping unable to effectively dash inside the box. He's going to play for shield replenish. Dexy, Eclipse, and Twy frontside low, starting to pick up here. And Clement, Snazy, and Ice, it's obvious they want to make sure that they're one of the teams controlling it. They've seen the level of success that so many of our former Victory Royale winners today have had playing through that frontside low. Meanwhile, overhead, Rick, Rada, just looking to suppress. And Seti, Yapko, Panzer, kind of stuck in their own battles here, still sandwiched between a handful of teams.
Good amount of heals mats left over, though. Don't have to risk anything yet with the amount of damage they have, especially depending on where this zone pulls. But what happened? Walks, Malabuka, Ping now once again left as a duo. This time Ping is up, though. They have enough heals to put them back in the game, but the issue is they went for those pre-edits. They couldn't close out on it. Now they're in desperate need of materials. A refresh is what they're going to look for, but as a duo, we've seen how powerful they can be. I would not be surprised if they're able to successfully find something here, but Marco, Andalex, Turtle are going to be the trio up above.
Hey, if nobody else is going to look to tackle height, why not us? Marco, Andalex, Turtle, taking note of where Dexy and Twy are at, but walks with the invisibility medallion from behind. Rick caught, and that is the ultimate refresh right now for Walks. Gonna immediately see if he can reunite with Ping. Even as a duo, they can still make some big moments happen here. Chicho, Tayson, Atris, frontside low, but things are starting to run out. Material count, not the healthiest, not where it could be at. And Tayson, he knows they're gonna have to set up for a pre-edit and fight.
They know how important this match is. It's going to come down to this pre-edit. They're looking for an angle, looking for an opportunity. Meanwhile, you can see Walks continuing to stay up with Ping, clutching out point after point, showing why they're leading the pack on the leaderboard. But Tayson, Thoris, and Chicho are running out of mats quickly. They have a quick farm here, but what they truly want is that big impact frag, those couple eliminations to put them back in the game as they have to continue to play backside of zone.
But look at Tayson, he's getting the chunks out of everybody's HP playing through the low ground. Walks, though, just a menace. Looking to play spoiler. Who's going to be caught next here? Ping, he recognizes the fact he can't rescue his teammate from Srapt, and Srapt somehow managing to escape from inside of the box here. But all eyes onto Panzer and Seti. They're still trying to see if they can make something happen. Heading straight for the high ground now. Yapko walks still underneath, finding even more eliminations, and walks everything in his power. But it's gonna come up short against Andalex. Panzer, Yapko, and Seti. Now one of our healthiest teams on the high ground. Seti's gonna drop. They need a material refresh, but really what he's after, he's looking to cause a catastrophe. He just needs to apply any kind of damage, any kind of pressure onto the teams underneath.
Mats is what Seti wants. Yapko's up above. He said, teammates, go down, find me. Anything I can use to maintain this high ground. The issue is, there's a full trio down below. It's Tayson, Chicho, Haris, and they're going extra aggressive now that they've already picked up those materials, making sure they can claim the front side of zone. As players are going to slowly drop down onto them, but it looks like there's another trio below as well. Andalex, Marco as a duo in the mid ground have to figure something out. The med kit's not going to be enough. The French trio still up and running as Andalex is left as a solo.
And that's even more material that they'll have to work with. Snazy, Clement, Ice. Clement staring down Tayson on the other side of the wall, but he's not going to be able to break through just yet. Looking now towards that ultimate low. He's spotted a couple of players, but it's all down to Tayson. Legis and Valerie, they're going to turn this one in their favor. Azul has to play for the Chug Jug, and Clement knows it, immediately punishes him, immediately challenges him. And that's going to be his second Chug Jug now left to work with through. Atris, Chicho, Tayson, all the while holding things down. Valerie looking like a madman out here, trying to see if he can prevent Tayson, Chicho, and Atris from having success. And Clement's still playing for the Chug Jug, but there's so many medkits, like you just called out, Takata. This is looking like a heal-off.
Last time Chicho had no medkits, all he had was that mist form, but now he's looking to see if it's going to be enough. Seti's still up above. Yapko gets cracked. One more use of the med mist as he continues to find another shot. As he drops down below, misses the initial one, gets knocked down. Haris falls shortly after, and Panzer Seti now need to find a way to close this out.
But the damage may have already been done. Panzer's holding on to two of those med mist grenades. He's also got the mist form to work with and a couple of med kits. So even through all of the healing that Chicho has been begging for this other team to please just go down already, but the resource favors Panzer and Seti. As long as Storm Sickness doesn't play a part here, and I doubt it will, Panzer still has two med kits. Chicho forced now to use a tick out of the misform. Just gonna take the charged battle overhead, but he knows it's the end of his run here, and Panzer will bring this one home. But this is what we are after, Takata. Seeing Seti, Yapko, and Panzer punch their ticket to the Major 3 Grand Finals.
Puts a smile on my face. There was two trios I talked about going into this game. It was Tayson that was just on that cutoff of qualifying, barely outside, and it was Seti, Yapko, and Panzer. There were just a few points in qualifying range. Both trios now went head-to-head in that first place versus second place battle, but in the end, Yapko, Panzer, and Seti closed it out, securing them a spot in the major finals. We got to go back to the desk to break that down.
Thank you so much. A new era has truly begun for Seti. We'll be seeing him and his new teammates in the Major 3 final. And it's good to see all three of them making it truly to the end game and pretty much sticking the landing. A really exciting heel off at the end there, Levin.
Yeah, really well played from these guys. Another game where they played for height. This time they were able to keep it successfully, ward off any of the competition for it. And look, I know where we bigged up Seti and Cammy and we celebrated them as a duo and what they've done together. But maybe it's time to start some rivalry because look, Seti's made it through now. Over to you, Cammy, tomorrow. Let's see what you can do, brother.
I want to see it. I want to see it. I want to see who's gonna qualify, who's gonna come through now. And actually qualify for global championships now at the end of the year. This game, though, in particular, I think it's sort of the first time we've really seen High Ground really just be so dominant and successful as well. You could sort of see they were really efficient with it as well. Only 4 eliminations at this point, so they were really efficient with their materials. Of course, we saw, I think it was Seti dropping down a little bit earlier on in that end game to try and get refreshes. And I was like, why are they both staying up here? I was kind of expecting Seti to go down and try and fight out, but of course they had those med miss grenades, which allowed them to both stay alive. They didn't even need the med kits at the end, so really well played from these guys.
Fantastic to see Chicho finding himself in yet another 1v1 situation as well. We were talking about going into that game that Taysom's trio really needed a strong victory, but we have to take a short break before we can talk to you about that in more detail. So, Fortnite family, we'll see you in a few. We got to witness Seti and his new teammates book a spot in the Major 3 finals with a victory royale. So sadly, we won't get to see them play in the last game of today. And it's a really important game. As I mentioned earlier on, we are going to see some of our trios end their season with us in Group 2. No one wants that to happen. However, the competition is satisfyingly strong tonight. And we have to say, Mini Miner, it's been a particularly strong showing from our French trio, Ice, Snazy, and Clement.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to that Clement solo clutch earlier on, you know, keeping them in it, keeping them in the running, ensuring that they're still up on that upper echelon of the leaderboard, keeping themselves inside of the qualification range in terms of consistency. And this was a game now where they were all together, they were playing really well, and this is just showing what this team can do. They're fighting, Levin, to be in those major finals and then, of course, in those global championships.
Yeah, no, I've really been impressed with how these guys have been playing in some of these games. I think you look at a game like this, and if they are able to make it to that major finals next weekend, I'd love to see them play more like this, right? And be a threat, be a force, be a team that, you know, you can't have on your same layer, because you're going to get big problems with them there. So really nice to see these guys finding a bit of form, finding a bit of momentum to pick things up.
Yeah, and I think it sort of brings you back to the old sort of trio days of maybe Clement, Floki, the Sipdos, low ground, fragging out, just doing what they do best. And it seems like that if they can continue that sort of brand of Fortnite, maybe we'll see that be a little bit more successful for them as it comes to the major finals, because this was really, really nice for them all staying alive all together. Of course, couldn't close out the win, but I'm sure we'll have a look at the leaderboard very soon. I'm sure they won't mind too much when it comes to just staying consistent, because that's all you need to do.
The more French trios to qualify for Major 3, the better. Major 3 Grand Finals, the better, in my opinion. We've got two other strong French trios in Podesize Trio and Akira's Trio coming up tomorrow. But the way that Clement is playing tonight, I am looking forward to seeing them in that major final. We've got to talk about the teams that are in contention for the consistency points tonight. The way that Chicho, Tayson and Hatris were playing in that last game, you wouldn't be blamed for thinking that they've been playing that way all night. They're looking so smooth and confident. They have been unlucky at times, however, Mini Miner.
Yeah, I mean, I said it actually going into this game that they had a bad first game, clutched up a second in the second game, bad game 3. Now they've clutched up a second in game number 4. What's going on with these guys right now? And it's always a sort of Chicho solo clutch there at the end. So if they can just continue that, they'll be absolutely fine. I'm not quite sure what's going wrong in those games where they're not doing so well, but they're making up for it.
It was an excellent response. It was a response they needed. And it's the kind of game we knew they could have, right? Which is why I said, you know, I wasn't worried about them. That game gives them a comfortable position to be in for this final game, but you can't be too comfortable. You know what I'm saying? They still got to lock in and perform here in game number 5.
There's one more victory royale up for grabs. Do we think that Malibuca's trio is finally going to take it? They've been making those end games and performing so strongly. It's strange that it's eluded them so far, 11.
Well, look, this is what I asked for, so I'm not going to sit here now and then start critiquing them, going, yeah, why are they winning? You know, like I was telling them, I was saying I didn't want them to win until, you know, the final one. Look, regardless of whether they've got the win or not, their performance today has been top. Absolutely top. They've played really well. They've played like themselves in a lot of these games, and even though there's things to work on and improve going into next weekend's final, they've shown a good account of themselves. And yeah, to wrap it off with a win, I think would be a nice for them in terms of the vibes of the day. But all in all, I've been impressed with them regardless.
Yeah, these guys are just levels above the rest of the lobby when it comes to these end games in particular as well. There always seems to be that one team in these groups that just seemingly don't get a win, but just performs so much better than everyone else. The consistency at making these end games as well. They just haven't been able to get the win, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. They've had more practice at this level. They've been able to refine what they do best. And now, yeah, as you mentioned, that would be perfect for them to get a win here.
Well, we are ready, my friends, for the final game of Group 2. Everything on the line for a lot of these trios, so let's head back to Taco and Takata.
Thank you, Frankie. Literally everything on the line. It's the last major for these players to have a chance at qualifying to the Global Championship at the end of the year. Like Levin was mentioning, Malibuca, Wox, and Ping are leading the pack, but the cutoff to qualify through consistency is 129 points. And it's going to shake up in this last match, Taco.
I think the bigger line for all these teams to keep in mind is they don't want to end up in the last chance qualifier, Takata. You just want your seat on the battle bus. But there's only one team that can win lobby number 5. With everything kind of building up to this point for the teams here in Group 2, one more time, you just don't want to leave it up to the last chance qualifier to dictate whether or not your Major 3 run ends. And yeah, that's essentially the chance of the Global Championship. So let's get to it.
The last opportunity for a majority of these trios, not including that last chance qualifier like you alluded to, Taco. A lot of big names kind of dropped down a little bit based on that last match. We have Bevies, Ankido, and Fastroki that are now 1 placement point off qualifying through consistency. Dexy, Eclipse, and Twy did a great job pushing themselves up into that top 15, but it is going to have to be a top 10 to qualify. We have Strapped, Hellfire, and Tripburn also really close to that top 15 range. These are the trios that don't need a win, but need a solid match. On the other hand, there's trios at the bottom of the pack that do need that victory royale, and this game, it's going to mean everything for them.
And that kind of opens up a bigger conversation to Takada, because what happens when the teams that are just looking for a safe, solid, secure final lobby to close in their consistency threshold, and then the last thing you know, you're getting bamboozled. There's a team at your drop that wasn't here the last lobby or even 2 lobbies before that. GoBao taking full advantage of some of these opening shots. That first elimination to kind of pivot the direction of this fight. It's going to force Benet to just hunt the top of the Ascenter. But so far, no luck. At least not the kind that they would need to try and bring this one back. They might just have to completely pivot, completely leave. Benet might not get the chance to.
Yeah, not looking too hot. Just take a replay of how Canyon Crossing kind of started off. Seems that Faded was able to get a quick knock.
It's a painful 50-50.
Yeah. Especially when your opponent gets a shotgun, you're like, well, so much for that.
To be fair, this is what's commonly referred to, I think, as a season of drops. If you are just able to outdrop your opponent and get the better end of that exchange, start things off on the right foot, especially when you know it's the last lobby to play through today, and Faded, big momentum shift possibilities there too. Early contest, though, technically speaking, for Malibuca, Walks, and Ping, they're practically guaranteed. They are guaranteed, Takada, just off of the consistency metrics. But Ping might have to sit this one out if he's not careful. Walks and Malibuca from overhead are also going to have their own shield bubble to try and play through. Mayfix and Odin don't have any shield, and Odin will finally get knocked here, but Hero actually trying to be the hero instead. Giving it to us in 4K. That is perfect vision of how to use those kill switch revolvers. And Malibuca. Oh, yes, for Mayfix. Oh no, for Malibuca.
The dream. Can he make it happen?
Walks and Ping are still there. Don't worry. But Malibuca maybe reconsidering going for that. It looked like a pickaxe attempt on being.
It was a pickaxe. It was a pickaxe. You don't gotta settle it down. Look, if there's any trio you're gonna go against in the last match, I understand wanting to loot from Demon's Domain, but you know that's a tough task to conquer. Bevies, on the other hand, they need to make it to the end game in this match. Having Enkidu went down this early, nice box up to get the clean elimination, but they need to close this one out. Shots coming through. Bevies, you cannot afford to go down here. As they regroup, no mats onto Fastroki. One big shot is all they really need. 127 is putting them on that cutoff to be in qualifying range. If they go down here, they are out of the game. But luckily enough, the double res is going to come through.
Oh, they're trading it.
Oh,
they're just going to trade the double revive. Fastroki and Bevies now with Enkidu intact. But these are two teams that are incredibly hurt. Given the position that Bevies trio is in, they might even just look to fully disengage, but they're not the only ones that need to keep their Game 5 running, hopes alive. Zandy, Robob, Faded in pursuit of that consistency portion of the leaderboard. They need a win here more than anything. But Zandy, Robob, and Faded brought to a halt here momentarily. Nosif, Sobi, and Sloxay. Thought for a moment that they would go back in there.
They got those eliminations kind of early on in the match. I don't think it was even like a full shield elim, meaning that they got a bit of damage, but it's not going to be enough to be fully comfortable. Surge didn't tick as hard in this last match with the amount of fights that are going to go on, but at the same time, it's looking a bit stacked. You have to think that Bevies and Kiddo and Fastroki, after what could have been a quick hiccup at the start, now might be feeling a bit of pressure, but the huge 162 is going to be enough to get that knock once again. This time around, though, they're going to be looking to close it out, and Bevies has already been cracked. Fostroki, though, is going to pick up another, and they might have just saved themselves with those 3 quick eliminations.
And Bevies, we talk so much about the SETI Cammy split, but you also have to remember the Bevies Pablo split up. A lot left to prove there for that trio. Tripper and Srapt Hellfire just trying to make it out of Shiny Chefs in the first place. Caught. And some pretty aggressive measures here, but Odilon's team can be the first ones to fall back. The Memphis grenade, likely the reason why. They just know no purpose in trying to fight through a team that's going to be a lot healthier than when we initially started this exchange. And it seems like they've been the team potentially even third-partying Tripperns. There's already 1 elimination here for Trippern, but whatever the case, Tripper and Hellfire Srap probably content with the fact that both of those teams actually opted to just pull back.
Over at Shiny Shafts, just a few shots going back and forth, but we look back at Clement, Snazy, and Ice. They had an amazing performance in the last match, and it pushed them from being like pretty close to that cutoff, kind of mid-range, to now in a comfortable second place on the consistency leaderboard.
All I saw was Clement with a single Spire rifle and mats. Kind of hoping that Loda gets a little bit more filled up as the game goes on, but Ju got a chance to catch up with that Elim onto Lars. And we've seen Ju, Robin, and Kylie be relatively aggressive throughout the course of today's games. It seems like they're always caught fighting somebody else.
Tayson Harris and Chicho, on the other hand, also like getting a bit aggressive, but from that second place clutch, it's exactly what they needed to set themselves up for this last match. But the job's not done yet. They still want to get a bit of points in this game to confirm the qualification. They're kind of just on that borderline right now. Pingwalks, Malabuka looking incredibly strong after they're able to claim their domain once again and rotate on over to the island, picking up that medallion.
It had a lot of Rift Island medallion control today, but Asa just crouch walking around the vicinity here of Walks, Ping, Malabuka. This is not the trio that you want to be having to hide out from. And for Asa too, no clue for as to when he actually snuck up onto the Rift Island. But for Malabuka, Ping, and Walks, since they have 4 eliminations, wouldn't be surprised if 2 of them potentially belong to Asa's teammates. So very good odds that they'll know he's a solo kind of lingering as they continue to just try and maintain their spacing from other teams in the lobby. Natural elevation from Rift Island. Nobody looking back though, and Asa, he's totally cool with them not knowing he's there.
Yeah, he's having a good time. I also want to bring out, I believe it was Malabuko. Someone's already S rank. It shows how quickly you can kind of rank up, having not only the NPCs from Demon's Domain, but also the island NPCs. With that drop spot, being able to claim both is incredibly powerful for this current season. Kylie gonna want a pretty big match here.
But for Malabuka's team to do such a good job at just getting control of the Rift Island medallion, control of the elevation, it showcases how haphazard a lot of these end games have been throughout the course of today's games, because you never really know what to expect. High ground has just been cannibalizing itself frequently, and then the teams playing through low, picking prime opportunities to strike. It's just an up and down constant exchange. Really curious to see. Yeah, I just want to see what the teams look to do in terms of playing for height in the end game here.
Yeah, especially the last game, right? It's kind of has that much more pressure on it. Dexy Twine Eclipse did an amazing job pushing themselves up the leaderboard, but we saw on the stat it was around 189 to qualify in Group 1, and right now the cutoff is only at 129, so you can see how much it can increase in a single match. It really does depend who does get that win, though. If a trio like Malabuka walks and Malabuka do, or Ping walks in Malabuka, then it's going to help quite a bit. But if not, trios like Twi, Eclipse, and Dexy are going to have a really good game.
This
push
might
themselves
be a
in.
rude awakening, Takada. I don't even know if Dexy, Eclipse, and Twi are even aware of the fact that Zandy, Robob, and Faded, they are setting up currently complete cutoff positions. And Zandy, Robob, Faded. This is devious work. Twi, Eclipse, Dexy just going to continue pushing further and further back on this
Oh, that's just...
southern section of the map, but
Will they
this is
go
not
for
a
it?
safe spot.
Yeah, when you got Raban, Faded, and Andy kind of just waiting. The thing is, they can't really get a 3-2-1 because of how split they are, so it'd be more like a surprise pump. Or that zip line. That would be a dangerous zip line to hit. Time will tell as we look back at Jake Buka here, who has been cracked. Has to be careful as the French trio pushes on forwards.
Snazy with that unstable yoink can definitely turn things over in a moment's notice. Clement trying to see if there's another line of sight he can open up, but Snazy just continuing, kind of better away. The team underneath him, Lunex, just looking to hold his own, waiting to see if maybe his teammates are going to be able to try and back him up here. But Clement, Snazy, Ice, they're going to need some type of conclusion to this drawn-out battle. Teams hovering from that southern section of Demon's Domain, likely going to be called over by the noise taking place, and Nosiv, Slaxe looking to be one of the first to try and set up for it. Box Ping Malabuka, though, they actually have been challenged pretty directly, too. Overhead on the Rift Island, Focus, Huffle, and Nixon, they want control.
Can they take it, though? Malabuka walks and Ping looking to get the cherry on top to their already elite performance in this second group of Major 3. All that's left is the win, and this is the game to get it. The shots going back and forth, though, and looks like Upples, Nixon, and Co are going to decide to try and disengage, but they got to be careful as 2 players of the trio have already been cracked. And now Ping, Walks, and Malabuka are going to stay back up on the island, it seems.
There's no teleportation measures, no easy way to get off that Rift Island. So if you lose pressure in that fashion, you can expect to get lit up for it. Malabuka, Ping, and Walks, though, holding on to that oversight. It's going to be big leverage in comparison to where the rest of this lobby is kind of filtering through. And Demon's Domain, very likely that there could be teams based up around there looking to try and catch people off guard. Similar instance here for Twi, just misforms directly into Faded's box, and Faded just thought that he had escaped, but that is a big blow here. Z-Andy's team, they thought that this was their prey, and instead they're the ones that become the victims. A big shutdown here at the very end, too.
That's huge, though. If Dexy and his trio are able to get a back-to-back solid match, could be enough to qualify, even if it's not the win. 9th, 6th in the last 2 matches after the not-so-strong start in the first 2 games. We'll see, though. They got a lot more to do if they do want to end up qualifying. Ju, Robin, and Kylie, 5 eliminations already. They cannot throw it away, though, as the hidden sneak attack is going to take out Ju. It's now a 2 versus 2. They don't need the damage, but now they need to bring their teammate back.
All that time, and now they're going to have to expend even more of it to try and play for rebooting Ju. And Ju also had 4 of those eliminations, Takada, so yeah, that is a terrible blow for their search threshold, and they're just getting chased now. Theodore, Jasper, an entirely separate team hunting out Kylie and Robin. Bad just gets worse here for Robin's team. They were hoping to have a strong performance in the final lobby. Instead, they find themselves completely turned upside down as Jasper finds the first knock onto Robin, but
there it
Kylie
is.
will bite back here. Good elimination onto Theodore and Jasper. Gobao and Killbud now excited to revisit this conversation. And Kylie, he was hoping to try and stick it out on the reboot van, but that's just not going to be a possibility. Kilba can continue to give chase while Gabao plays for his own reboot. And that is a tough break there for Kylie, too. There's just nothing left to do except run.
I mean, both trios even now kind of put into shambles, have to find a way back to zone. It's not an ideal position for either team here, but we can see kind of how Kylie was able to turn around the fight a little bit with the other trio that was fighting them. Quick 2 shots, all he needed. We'll see if they're able to make it to zone.
Definitely seeing a good chunk of our lobby teams, though, Takada, as they were kind of just hovering around that consistency portion of the leaderboard and being stuck inside of duo scenarios versus being able to play with all 3. So it's very obvious that some of these teams getting aggressive, looking to try and have a really strong final lobby. But if you play over aggressive, that's just where a third party exchange pulls down to. And Prometez and Seziak can kind of look back. Demon's Domain, Sobi, Slakse, and Nosif thought they were going to be able to clean up this exchange, but Seziak just putting down Nosif. And the moment that he tried to challenge, that right side peak just too strong.
Wow, the amount of damage that was outputted in just a few shots. What a way to close out that fight.
Seemed kind of reckless, though, for Nosif to tackle her like that. Probably desperate for surge damage more than anything.
I mean, it's the final match. Pressure's on. Sometimes you don't have a lot of time to make that decision. It is easier said than done. Up will mix it. Focus. Got a bit of ways to go for the zone, but I'm trying to think how worried I am. The good news is in terms of mats, you know, you can farm wood during the rotate quite quickly. They should be able to set themselves up for a decent match here.
And that quick stat may also be working against Focus and Upwell right now. Mixon, very notorious for falling off of consistency to the previous 2 major finals. And looking to probably repeat that here today, Takada, if they don't win this final lobby. And with so many teams, though, that are kind of just hinging on a final lobby win, it kind of extends back to that earlier point I tried to touch on, where I just expect things to get so messy, so absolutely chaotic, because you're going to have that many more teams just going all out, full sending, maximum risk if they think it'll net the win.
Yes, might not be the game you want to play high ground, depending on what position you're in. If you're looking for just a few extra points and don't have to fully close out the match. It's funny, though, with the zone ending by Demon's Domain, it's almost like things are setting up for Malibuca, Ping, and Walks, but there's so many trios that are looking quite healthy. It's still anybody's game. Robin, though, looking the opposite of healthy here.
It's a bit of a tragedy what took place. Robin, Kylie, Ju having to play for a reboot to bring Ju back, and the trade-off is losing Kylie on the process of making their way back to zone. And they'll probably just have to sit tight, play through, backside low, hope for a refresh to kind of stumble into them more than anything else.
Yeah, 7 HP. Cannot tank a single tick of storm. Not really the position you want to be in going into this last match. Looks like Taste and Chicho Haristo have made it with quite a good loadout in terms of heals, mobility, and mats. Even being in zone here. They're set up to do everything they need to qualify here. What, 20, 25, maybe 30 points could be enough to comfortably set themselves up in qualifying range. The amount of damage they've already done as well. Looks like odds are in their favor.
I like this, though, from Chicho, just applying pressure to the team across the way that was looking to hold tight. He could recognize the fact that they're being challenged from a team underneath them. So why not add to the mix, add to the crossfire, keep things as crazy as possible. Robin and Ju desperate now to see if they can find some sort of a refresh, but nothing building in their favor just yet. Robin can instead drop, still chasing after Velvery. But it's so obvious that Robin and Ju are just desperate for any kind of damage. And now the rest of the lobby also turning into their position. Robin now forced to just build back, still trying to cut around us, still trying to find an opening shot. But instead, the ultimate turnaround factor, it's just not up to him. The lobby focus it's too steady, it's too much to deal with. Ju has a misform to buy a little bit of time, but even then he's not going to be able to break it through. He's just stuck building for his life. And eventually the material count will run out. And that's going to be the shutdown here. Mix and focus Uphold. I'm happy for them though. In the low ground, they're clearly prospering.
Yeah, but it's going to be a bit more to do if they want to happily put themselves into the major finals. What a shot.
Yeah,
That surprise connected.
I take it back. I didn't get the chance to see the full clip.
Let's
I swear.
not
Okay,
jinx anything here. As Tayson, Chicho, and Haris rotating in. You were mentioning
Oh.
Mixon. They were 9th place going into here. So they still need quite a big match to maintain their spot. Bevies and Aikido really have to clutch this one out. They were in 11th place, where 10 is qualifying range. So they're going to still have to get at least, say, 20, 30 points to qualify. They have enough damage, but having Fastroki already been eliminated, it's going to be a rough route.
Constantly having to watch their back also, even with those misforms. The team on height could be a real nuisance to deal with. Fruzy, Monto, Wax, they've now gotten a taste of what high ground control feels like, and they're trying to ensure that nobody else has a real opportunity to challenge them just yet. They're going to still be able to ramp out a little bit further, but Ice, Clement, Snazy caught in a whole separate battle here in the underbelly of the Demon's domain. Snazy going to be leading the charge here, and for good reason. Anytime you're able to use one of these exotic shotguns, you usually want to be one of the first ones into the fight. Is now overhead. Frontside low, though, belonging to Snazy and Clement. That could be devastating for the teams right behind them.
Really could. Mixon in the feed has gone down. Upple now trying to clutch it out as is Solo, 162. Group 1 cutoff was 189, but it could be a little lower. If you could get at least more than 175 into the 180 range, could be enough. Tayson trying to get ahead of zone here, but as Upple continues to get more pressure put onto him, he's going to be forced to misform ahead now. 31 builds left, not a lot of HP. That last mini is going to be popped.
It's the fact that Upple ever gets out to begin with, though, that's impressive as is. As a solo, just trying to keep his team's dreams alive for this Major 3 Grand Finals quals. You don't want to bank it on the last chance qualifier, but the team on height, they're going to be the ones that everyone else is probably going to have to reckon with here. Aikido, Bevies, another one of our trios looking to just cement their position inside of that Major 3 Grand Finals. But now, Clement, Snazy, they were just waiting for the chance to strike. Team on height ran out of material count. That's going to force them to drop. And Upple still barely clinging on for dear life here. Only has 3 builds. Needs to connect with this shot onto Rudolph. But Rudolph, he's not going to make it easy. Atris, Tayson, Chicho, they're going to be the ones now dropping underneath. Full low ground control. The moment that Clement, Ice, and Snazy went up, they knew they could just be the ones to take over low. But Upple, from backside of zone, he has 0 builds to work with here. Takada, he has to find an immediate shot.
The last chance, last opportunity for Upple. All the pressure's on him. He's lost his teammates. He just has a sliver of HP. The initial shot comes through. A bit of materials recuperated. Still no heals, though. Takes out one. That elimination might just be enough, but he has to get a bit more placement. Missed form. Last use being put into play. Gets ahead of zone. Meanwhile, up in the clouds, the stratosphere, it's Hellfire. Tripped and strapped. They need to hold on.
The Danes looking to strike back in this final lobby. Srapt just holding on with his chug jug, but with Trippern still looking to contest height here up against Gold. Srapt incredibly low. Gold gonna take to the misform, and Tayson underneath it all with Chicho and Atris still in full control of this front side low. Looking healthy to boot. couple, barely alive, but he's still there, but he goes down. The moment, the placements, have they been enough? Only time will tell. Bevies, now it's his turn to just cling to as many placement points as possible here. He's hoping that nobody recognizes he's a solo in the backside, but he has to move forward. Only 4 builds remain, down to his last 2. Valerie might have been the chance, but Andalex is going to be the one who steals that away. Bevies now praying that anything comes his direction.
Second height, you have Twidexy and Eclipse as well. They need a big match here to qualify. All these trios are on that borderline of making it through consistency. Bevies, he hits the shot, picks up another elimination. 178 points now. Just a few more could potentially secure it. As the siphon comes through, he hits it again. 170, but you need to get that finish. One more elimination could be all it takes. He gets the knock, gets the points. Bevies, are you kidding me?
Bevies just refuses to fold. He's taking down Eclipse. He's keeping this charge going. One more. Could it be the next one that ends his life? But Bevies tangled up, can't break through. Finally, gonna be put down in the dirt. Tayson, Chicho, Atreus, layer swap, just one above. Chicho loses sight of Tayson, loses his teammate. And Chicho with Atreus, they might still be able to close this one out. But Clement, for good measure, all the way back. No one has a chance of catching up to where he is at. It's going to come down exclusively to who's got more whites remaining. The Chug Jug 160 charge. Chicho with a med kit also has the misform just in case here. Takada, it's going to come down to the wire.
This is going to be the 3rd time I've seen Chicho in a 2nd place position, having to clutch it out. The one Chug Jug is all that's Clement's got left. He finds a med miss, though. That could be the deciding factor. The med kit is going to allow Chicho to use the mist form one more time, but Marco is still up as well. It's a 3-person heal off. Chicho goes down. Marco and Clement, how are they still alive?
It's the bandages versus the med miss grenade, and Clement, he's found a miracle here at the end of the lobby. Takada, 2 med miss grenades. The odds of that, but that's just how active you have to stay in these endgame moments. He peeled off immediately, looking to play out both of those Chug Jugs. It's just insane to think that Marco took him all the way before finally Clement managed to outlast him with the heal off.
So many players were clutching it up as a solo. They were just a few points away from qualifying. I have no idea what that cutoff is going to be from the heal-offs. The French trio taking height, looking to close it out. Elim after Elim. We had solo clutches. We had Eclipse's whole trio on 2nd height, also getting incredibly close. Marco himself was on the middle part of that leaderboard going into this match, and now closing it off with a 2nd place. Is it going to be enough? So much has just happened, and Taco, I don't even know what to say anymore. What a way to close out the last match of the day. How are you feeling, Taco?
That was absolute scenes, especially in these last couple of lobbies, Takada. But what I'm really keeping my focus on is how this leaderboard ended up. It's been an awesome ride through all 5 of these lobbies with you here today, Takada. But that's going to do it for us. We'll leave it up to the desk now to tell us what happens next.
Thank you so much, guys. We'll be seeing you guys casting the action for Group 3 tomorrow. Don't be late. Now, let's have a chat about the fact that our French trio has managed to make their way into the Major 3 finals via the Victory Royale. Although, I have to say, the way that Clement, Snazy, and Ice have been playing all day 11, they would have probably done it via consistency points anyway.
I mean, yeah, they were sitting in a good position regardless. If anything, they helped whoever was in 6th place, right, with that win. These guys have moved me today. Mini, they've performed so well. We've had great clutches, great high ground play. The whole works from this trio today.
Yeah, really great work from these guys all day long. This game in particular, they had height. We were saying in the back, we're like, yeah, these guys are probably going to win this game. And then they had it taken off of them. And it's so difficult to then retake height, get into a good position, and find yourselves in these end game situations. So all credit goes to these guys right here. And at the end, it was like a scavenger hunt. It was a little treasure hunt of every single player in that end game trying to go for a heal. I was like, oh, I've got my Chug Jug. Oh, a med kit. Oh, some med miss. It's like, I don't know. I didn't even know what was happening. It was just very, very fortunate for Clement that he was able to find those two med miss. But I don't think they don't deserve to qual. They've been performing very well today.
Well, Clement and Co were our 5th Victory Royale winner of the day, but let's remind ourselves who picked up our other wins and have already booked themselves a spot in next week's grand final. So if you cast your minds back to game 1, Cantry, Pagage and Fincheck, that was a photo finish. Slightly confusing as to who won that at the time, but now looking back, it seems obvious because these guys are demons on Hype Mini Miner.
Yeah, really great from those guys. Again, a team that's sort of been on the come up. Fincheck, Cantry in particular, playing with Uppal, always been sort of in and around that sort of major final, performing well. And then Pradaj, of course, one of those grinder players that we all know about. And then also to coach other teams to quals as well. Just a very, very good day at the office for those guys.
Absolutely. Now, looking at all these, let us know in the chat, how many of these did you predict correctly? Right? I think for me, I think I was 3 out of 5. I think I had Seti's team. I can't remember if it was them or for us, but either way, I think I'm going to claim the 3 out of 5 myself. We had some surprise wins there. I didn't expect, obviously, the game 3 winners to make it through. I think that shocked a lot of people. Then that final game, Clement and them, they played well. I did not expect them to come through, but there's always that one team, I think, every season that comes into the group stage and just like blows teams out the water, and you're like, wow, they played really well. So hopefully they match it in finals.
In some ways, it's a surprise for me that Malabuca's trio didn't pick up a Victory Royale tonight, but I have a feeling we're going to see them on the next list. It is our consistency qualifiers. 5 more trios going through to the finals next weekend. Obviously, Ping, Wox, and Malabuca. Fantastic performance from them today. Very consistent, Levin. It just didn't result in a Victory Royale, but that's fine.
But that is perfectly fine. All that matters is they got their spot in the final. We're going to see them next weekend. And hopefully we can see more of what we saw of them today. Top level Fortnite. Hopefully we get to see what we saw from them last major in the finals on day 1, at least, not day 2. I'm sure they won't want it to be like day 2. These guys have been top today, Mini.
Yeah, and even just there down in 5th place, Focus, Mixon and Uppal. That was a really nice clutch in that last game just to sneak into that top 5 position. And these guys have been like pretty solid all day. I haven't really seen any moments where I'm like, wow, this is an amazing performance from these guys. They've just been able to get in that sort of top 10 range, consistently getting eliminations, just playing as that I'd imagine set out to play when it comes to consistency. And that just shows there is another way to play this sort of format as well. You can just play out all of your games as much as you can and maybe not try and go for hype, maybe try and go for the wins. It's just about making it to these end games consistently and not necessarily setting the world on fire, just doing a decent job.
Yeah, these guys have played a couple finals now as a trio, and it's not been the world-class performances by any means, but they've shown signs that they can be a decent team, and again, to clutch up here, I'm sure that will be good vibes for them going into next weekend.
Yeah, just a couple of finals to their name. Early days for this trio. Nice to see Mixon bouncing back after leaving the side of Combeck and Blacker. So let's have a look now at the leaderboard and just see who narrowly missed out. Now, I had been saying that, the season ends for a lot of these trios today. Technically, there is the last chance qualifier, but obviously not every trio is going to make it into that lobby. So let's take a look at page 2 and see our contenders who will be trying to qualify again later in this week. And if you look at Dexy, so narrowly missing out. Do you think the commentators cursed them, Levin?
It's the most common esports trope, isn't it? It's to cast a curse. Everyone's always like, yeah, I said they're going to win. I'm so cursed. It's like, yeah, it happens, man. We see these things happen. I would love to see them make it through. They are definitely the kind of team, Mini, who I think going into last chance, you could see them making that lobby and getting a win for sure.
Yeah, particularly with how they performed at the sort of latter stage of today. Their first 2 games not very good, going down early on. They recovered, but just couldn't quite recover as well as they needed to. So yeah, you're absolutely right. If they can make those end games in that last chance qualifier, pick up a win, they'll be in the major finals. But a lot of pressure now. You don't want to be in that position.
Yeah, and there's a lot of pressure still to come this evening because the North American kicks off in just a couple of hours. So do stick around for Zeke, Vivid, Kelly, and gang. I can't wait either, but you're going to have to, Levin, okay? Learn some patience for goodness sake. You've had enough patience learning being on a desk with me. That is all from us though in Europe 4 tonight. We're going to be seeing you guys tomorrow, same time for Group 3. So make sure you're there, otherwise I'll come after you as I've just given you a fine example of it. Mini, I'll admonish you in just a moment. For now though, sound that horn.